Tēnā koutou katoa. Before I open our meeting, I'm just going to hand to Ruben Gardner to do our opening karakia. Kia koe, Ruben.
Whakamaua kia tina. Haumie,
Ai, kia. Kia ora, Ruben. And just before we open, just some housekeeping. I wish to remind councillors that the meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be made available on the Bay of Plenty Regional Council website following the meeting for a period of 3 years. Our purpose is to provide greater access to council debate, decision-making, and encouraging openness and transparency. I also remind all present that local government decision-making affords no protection to councillors, council officers, and the public for comments made during meetings that are subsequently challenged in a court of law and determined to be slanderous. Councillors who are on Zoom, good morning to you, and thank you for tuning in this morning. Please ensure your videos are turned on, and if you wish to speak, please raise your electric hand and turn on your microphone. Nō reira, tēnā koutou. Moving on to our business proper, may I call for apologies?
Through you, Madam Chair, we have apologies from Councillor White, Councillor Ron Scott, for lateness, Councillor Paula Thompson, who will be attending via Zoom, and those are the apologies. Thank you. Councillor E.T. as well for absence. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Crosby, Councillor Rees. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Carried. Just moving to the format of our agenda today. In public forum, there are none. Items not on the agenda. Please note an additional presenter, Samuel Taylor, current member of staff, will speak briefly after agenda item 8.3 with our He Tukatu Moana scholarship recipients about his journey as a student from his Harvard University to where he is now. I understand Samuel has been part of our INSET program, so is going to share his little journey and why he's with us. Order of business, no changes. I'll call for any declaration of conflicts of interest. There are none, thank you. Moving to our minutes of meetings on page 8 of our agenda pack. I'll take the minutes as a true and correct record. Can I have a move and seconder? Thank you, Councillor Nees. Thank you, seconder. Thank you, Councillor McMillan. Matters arising. There don't appear to be any matters arising. Very good. So we've had a mover and seconder. All those in favour say aye. Aye, carried. Thank you. I'll just check our first presenters present. All right, moving on to our first presenters today, which are staff from the Ministry for the Environment who are online. Eugene is online. Are you there, Eugene? Yes, I can see you. Tēnā koe, Eugene. I'm going to pass the rākau to you without further ado and allow you to introduce your team that you have aboard with us. Kia koe.
Yes, mō rena koutou, he mihi nui atu nei I tēnei ata, ki te tautoko ngā kaupapa o te tai au nei. Ko Eugene Berryman Camper Hau, Rangatohu, Te Manawa Te Wai, me Implementation Partnerships, Manatu mō te tai au. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time today. My name is Eugene Berryman Camp. I'm Wai and also Director for Implementation Partnerships at the Ministry for Environment. Councillor Winters, Councillor Thurston, wonderful to see you again. And joining me this morning is one of our principal advisors, Patsy. Oh, Patsy, I'll get you to introduce yourself, please. Oh, sorry, Patsy, you're just on mute.
Morena tātou, thank you, Eugene. Kia ora tātou, I'm Patsy Karauria, no Ngāti Parauahau. Kare tō rongi ngā kōrero hoa no tēnā tātou katoa.
Ka pai, Patsy, thank you for that. I do bring the apologies of Lorena Stevens, one of our directors for investments. Unfortunately, she's been called away. However, Patsy, if you could please mute, please again, and then we'll drop back to the right one.
If I can.
Oh, if you could please mute, because I think we're picking up your screen as the main picture. Thank you. And also, yeah, like I said, I bring the apologies of Lorena Stevens. Unfortunately, she's been called away, but I'll be presenting Lorena's update on funding options. And also what I do have is I have the apology for Motoi Doherty as well. Motoi is one of our interim kaiwhakatere, but she's actually attending the Te Waihapu blessing with Councillor White this morning. So she's unavailable. What I will do now is move to my shared screen view. Sorry, if you can bear with me for just a minute here. Oh, there it is. And we'll go to sorry, so just double checking, you should be seeing relationships presentation there.
Yes, we can see.
And is it in the full screen view, or can you see the slides just down the side as well?
Just in full view at the moment.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so this is the presentation that I have to run through, and this is about what MFE are doing in terms of our regional relationships. So first of all, of course, James Palmer is our new Secretary for Environment. James came from Hawke's Bay Regional Council and started earlier this year. I report to Nadine Domisay, who's Deputy Secretary for Policy Implementation and Delivery. And again, Lorena and I both report through to Nadine. Natasha Liota is our kaiwhakatere manager, and I'll speak to that a little bit later on. Now, in terms of our kaiwhakatere, and our kaiwhakatere are our regional navigators, MFE are working through this process, and up on screen right now, you'll see we have interim kaiwhakatere in 7 regions. Motoi Doherty is the interim kaiwhakatere for the Bay of Plenty region, behind Lake Roto Ehu. And I'd be very keen for Motoi perhaps to attend in person another Komiti Māori, just so that she has the opportunity to catch up with you. But you'll see right now we have kaiwhakatere in Te Tai Tokerau, Bay of Plenty, Tai Rāwhiti, Hawke's Bay, Wellington, Te Tau Ihu, and also Taranaki. So those are the regions where we have regional navigators at this point. Dion is actually our senior implementation advisor. So in terms of what we're doing, to Manatua Te Taia, we're looking to strengthen our regional presence, particularly including the Bay of Plenty. And the whole idea is to improve our relationships with both iwi Māori and local government in the Bay of Plenty rohi. As I've outlined, Motoi is based up there. Our current focus is on the freshwater reforms and the resource management reforms. However, we are mindful our partners will have more matters pertaining to Te Taiao that they'll want to raise with us. And we're looking at, to be fair, MFE had a somewhat transactional approach to our engagement in the regions. We're now moving effective and enduring relationship with our treaty partners and also with local government. And the whole idea of the navigators is to help navigate the relationships, make sure people are accessing the right people, right information at the right time. In terms of our principles, he waka eke noa, we're all in this together. Waiho ia toi potu kaua i te toi roa. Let us keep close together, not wide apart. And I'll speak about that just a little bit later on. And also, of course, ngā tauroro, naku te roro, kaurai te iwi. The whole idea is that with our combined contributions, well, in this case, the whakatauki is that the people will thrive, but also we're hoping that the taia will thrive as well. So in terms of what we do in the regional relationship space, we're looking to bring together MFE as one, and we're instigating regional teams. So Motoi will be drawing everyone in MFE who has some mahi in the Bay of Plenty region together so we can orchestrate our efforts. Being completely upfront with the committee, that this can be something of a struggle for MFE. We've traditionally operated in quite a siloed manner. But that doesn't help our key stakeholders and our treaty partners. So we're working to see if we can present as one MFE, connecting people to specialist mātauranga as we need to. Now, the kai whakatere are relationship managers. They're not subject matter experts, but they'll be able to bring in the subject matter experts across MFE to address whatever kaupapa the region may want to discuss. That fourth point is one that I'm really quite keen on. We're looking at the kai whakatere to provide that feedback loop. So to listen and feedback Bay of Plenty's regional priorities and intelligence back into the ministry. Again, we've been speaking openly, somewhat haphazard at that, but that's that whole idea of keeping close and keeping connected so that we have a better understanding of what's important to you in your region so that we can feed that into the teams that we have. Well, as I said, we focus on freshwater and RM and it's navigating the relationships. Some of the things we don't do MFE's funding applications, although we do connect you to the teams that do. Patsy is representing Lorena's team, and I've got in the presentation on funding, I'll be able to outline what is available, but connect you to the right people within the ministry on that. We also don't lead engagement. MFE has a number of engagement teams working on a number of kaupapa. We don't lead or do the engagement, but we are very keen to try and see if we can orchestrate that engagement so that you don't have multiple MFE teams trying to connect with you at the same time on different kaupapa. One thing that we're quite keen on too, we won't step on or over existing relationships. And I know that a number of you on this committee have direct lines to MFE officials higher up the food chain than myself, and we certainly suggest that you continue to utilise those. But it's that thing, it's just trying to help out. So in terms of how we can support those regional relationships and strategic partnerings, sometimes we are able to bring other government agencies and opportunities to the table. We're working quite closely with MPI and also DOC in terms of the natural resource cluster. And also I have regular meetings with Taumata Arawai and the team overseeing, gosh, I'm mindful I should remember this now. It's changed from 3 waters to affordable waters, but I meet regularly with that team. So if there's opportunities to spread that information on, we can do that. We can tap into our subject matter experts and program leads should wānanga be required. And also very keen looking at capacity and capability training and resource management training. And so, again, quite keen to meet and talk about what's required and working together in the Bay Plenty region, sharing information and building the relationships. This is my team right now, actually pictured at the garden of the dock office in Rotoro, where we had our last regional meeting. Just out of interest, 3/4 of the team are based in the central North Island. And so now, just moving up to Pātai. So what I may well do, bear with me as I master the technology, is how do I stop the share? Oh, stop share. There you go. So that's the presentation on regional. One more to go through in terms of a outline of funding support for fresh water. But look, I'll just open it up right now. Are there any questions that the committee may well have?
I'll move first to the members and ask members if they have any questions at this point. None from Zoom. We don't appear to have any questions at the moment, Eugene.
Kapai, thank you for that. And I should have outlined, yes, my apologies. As Councillor Winters and Councillor Thurston know, I live in Rotorua. Normally I would have been able to come across, but this is my 1 week of the month that I'm down in Wellington. So, but I am a local contact. Councillor Thurston and Winters knows where to find me. So if you need something locally, please feel free to utilise those. Look forward to working through with you. Anne, good morning. I've just got Lorena's presentation to do, then I'll be able to hand over to you. But since I've outlined that now, Anne, I guess I should probably ask you to introduce yourself to the committee before I do, and Lorena's presentation.
Hi, Eugene. Inga mima o te Komiti Māori, te Māori, tēnā koutou. Ko en haere tōku ingoa, he uri tēnei o te pūmanawa e waru o te aroa, i te taha o tuku kuia, he uri o ngā te pakaue, no te whānau tapihanga ki Maketu, i te taha o tōku koraua, ko tūharangi ngā te wāhia, ngā te rangi te arere ngā hapu. Nō reira, I me ana ki o koutou, a te Māori. Back to you, Eugene.
Kapai. Thank you, Anne. Yes, as I said, I bring Lorena Stevens apologies right now. I do have a presentation just to run through, because the topic was just giving the committee some idea in terms of what's covered under the Essential Freshwater Fund and the range of packages that are available. What I'll do is basically these are just for your information. Again, if there are any direct questions, I may call on Patsy, but also we have the ability to obviously field those you in with the right team. So I shall now go back to my screen share and go to... So just double checking right now, you should have up on screen the table outlined Essential Freshwater Fund. Okay. So can I just have confirmation you've got the Essential Freshwater Fund up on screen? Thank you, Councillor Thurston. This table just outlines the main components in the Essential Freshwater Fund. That fund seeks to increase capability and capacity within freshwater management and it's intended to support the freshwater reforms. So overall, it was 144 million over 3 years from 2022. I will at this point outline in terms of supporting the RM reforms our RM team is currently awaiting confirmation in terms of the appropriations to support iwi Māori capacity and capability in terms of the RM reforms. So that will be flowing through quite soon. But this fund in particular is focused in on the Essential Fresh Water Fund. So you'll see that first one there is with National Iwi Chair, Potaiao. We have a project called the Tangata Whenua Capability Fund. And so this is a focus to Manawa Te Wai and Taiao system program to build tangata whenua capacity and capability. They had a major Te Manawa Te Wai wānanga in Rotorua 2 months ago, and have a range of support packages that they are supplying to iwi and hapu as part of the iwi leaders group to help them take their place in terms of the discussions regarding Te Manawa Te Wai. There's also a separate tangata whenua project underway looking at providing FTE and capacity and capability training. That's through direct engagement with iwi, hapu and marae. So that project is working through now. The Essential Freshwater Fund also covers off catchment groups. So right now there's an agreement called Mountains to Sea, looking to connect people with their local waterways and collaboration between catchment groups, NGOs, hapu iwi, regional council, central government and primary industry. New Zealand Landcare Trust are running through a program to deliver national capability development to 12 regions hubs, and through regional council support we're providing support in terms of regional councils for FTE that go over and above the current roles. That funding rolled out at the end of last year. These ones highlighted are some more specific projects that are actually within regions. But in terms of from a wider national perspective, there's also a farm advisor and certifier network. Of course, freshwater farm plans were notified last week. And so the New Zealand Association of Resource Management, looking at building capacity and capability in terms of working on farm plans. Lincoln Agriversity in terms of professional development to non-agricultural students. Hort NZ, piloting a program to deliver the training regarding capacity and capability of growers, advisors and auditors to be able to deliver freshwater farm plans. Foundation for Arable Research, this is looking at improving nitrogen. Massey University, a project on catchment committees and their effectiveness. Working with Dairy on their collective action catchments. New Zealand wine growers in terms of a sustainability certification program. I am moving quite fast here, but we'll send this through to you. Up at Pukekoi, the Pukekoi Specified Vegetable Growing Area Integrated Catchment Plan, and also a number of freshwater plan work. And probably the last component is in terms of, well, second last component, we're working with NIWA in terms of fish passage plans, a number of councils on a number of regions on integrated catchment plans. We have this, Becca, the access to experts, and I have a slide on that which I can show, but might complete this, and also looking at supporting local government. Now, in terms of some of these, working with Parirua and City Council on regenerating waterways there, Otago Regional Council on catchment, Institute of Environmental Science and Research in terms of environmental capacity to improve water quality, and Tutumu Paeroa, we're doing now I am going to try and be very cunning here. Oh. So I assume right now you can see the access to freshwater expert slide. And
Can't see that.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Let me. Oh, yes, I see what I've done. Oh, look, actually, hold on for just a minute while I see if I can organize this in a better way. Now, let's see if I can go back over to this. Okay, you can see that now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Move this beastie up there. We're working with Becca in terms of access to freshwater experts. The service is available to regional councils, community catchment groups and tangata whenua. And again, it's looking at providing the ability for groups to contact in and get specific guidance on Te Mana o Te Wai, nutrient limit setting, sediment reduction, mahinga kai, wetland management, and a range of features there. So in terms of that, councils, tangata whenua request support from the team. They then allocate experts to provide that acceptance. And you can see here that we're looking to go live with that service more towards the end of this year, and it goes through until 2025. We are open for registration of interest, and those are the contacts there. So what I will do is I'll stop Gia now because I've been speaking for a long time and cut into Anne's time, but just mindful, I've gone really quickly there. We'll send that information through, but do you have any particular questions?
Any questions from the members? Councillor McMillan.
Oh, kia ora. I was just wondering how you, so that's a lot of, a lot of projects and they all sound really exciting. How do you sort of feedback so that you're kind of lean and versatile and you can see, okay, that one's really effective. We need to put more resource there because that's really flying and getting an impact. And whereas this one isn't working so well. Yeah, how does it all tie together? And then how does that connect with us as a regional council and what we're discovering and out to Hapu as well?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. We have some fairly robust internal evaluation frameworks because that is one of the things, of course, with the reforms, this is uncharted territory for all of us. And when you're looking at transformative change, you need to try things. You need to make an assessment as to whether they're working or not, and you need to be able to share the lessons, be they good or bad. So your point is well made. We do have internal evaluation frameworks. Obviously, from a public funding perspective, we need to make sure that the projects that we fund are delivering on the outcomes that are intended, or we have it up if they're not delivering for us to be able to pivot accordingly. So we have internal frameworks. We do have connectivity with local government NZ and through our freshwater group, through the freshwater iwi, through the freshwater implementation directors framework, which is regional government and MFE. And we quite regularly reassess these things and go back with that. Now, part of the desire, though, is with our regional presence increase and with our kai whakatere being able to feed that, the richness of that local intel into the system as well too. Because to be fair, what might be meeting a objective for central government and what might be meeting an objective for regional government may or may not meet another objective for our tangata whenua partners. And of course, the ultimate thing is it making an environmental outcome? So we do have those feedback loops in place.
Ka pai.
Denise.
Thank you very much, Eugene. Just a question. There's an awful lot going on and the regional council is doing an awful lot, and now you are also doing an awful lot within our region. So is the role of the kai whakatere as navigators to ensure that we don't trip over one another? Because I do fear that there's an awful lot going on, and there could be quite a bit of crossover and potential for confusion, particularly when we're out consulting with tangata whenua, with catchment groups, etc.
Yes, look, you've actually encapsulated the issue really well. There's an awful lot happening at central government, and of course, we're only Manatū Mō Te Taia. MPI are doing an awful lot, DOC are doing an awful lot, DIA are doing a lot within the water transformation space. So having someone that has got a local lens on all of the stuff that's happening within a region is something that we're quite keen on, and is the idea of the kai whakatere, so that we don't trip over and so that we orchestrate things as much as we can. Of course, we're quite keen on trying to organise engagement meetings. However, it may be more prudent to tap into existing regional platforms that you have in place, that MFE come into those meetings rather than try and orchestrate another one. And of course, it can be quite handy if we have kaupapa that are similar to make sure that we're all linked in. So part of the role of the kai whakatere is exactly as you've outlined, to make sure we're not tripping over each other, to provide that regional focus input, to be able to advise MFE, if you want to speak to groups in this sort of topic in this sort of way, there's already another group doing something similar and they're having a get together at this point, maybe it'd be good to get onto that agenda.
Cheers. Yeah, Eugene, Councillor Campbell here. Just one group that you've hasn't mentioned this morning, and that's your territorials. Where do they come into the fold of this? Because they're the ones that are on the ground working in your areas. So can you just pull me up on that, please?
Yep, certainly, Councillor. And look, that is a good point. What we tend to do is work regional councils predominantly as our statutory partners, but certainly working with the TLAs is the next extension. Probably the next example that I can share with you, for instance, we have a regional team operating in Taranaki. So that's been working with Steve Ruru over in Taranaki Regional Council and Dion Tuta in terms of Ngā Iwi o Taranaki. So that started it off, but now that's dropped down to including all of the Taranaki TLAs into the discussion as well too, so that again we make sure that everything's orchestrated, because I guess it's a thing that we know that the water and resource management reforms will be enacted at pace. So that's where the activity will happen. So it's adding those in, but I guess at this point, through regional council and our iwi Māori partners, forming the infrastructure to then be able to extend out to the TLAs.
Thank you for that.
Māori.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question of defining the difference in terms of mana whenua. There's two views to that. There's property rights and customary rights. Mana whenua is, in my view, mainly to do with customary rights. Because every tribe believes in the same God, Hau mai tiki tiki, which is customary. Hau mai tiki tiki, if you look after Hau mai tiki tiki will grow you fat kumaras. But if you're arguing mana whenua, you're talking about property rights, then we'll have intertribal feuds. So, and I don't see you defining the difference between customary rights and property rights. Property rights is a navigational line, and the navigational line is something that the fish don't take notice of when they swim through a navigation line. They can't see it. Tauranga City Council, Western District Council are drawing maps, lines, which is property right. Can you define that mana whenua or make it more definite in your future proposals?
Thank you, Councillor. Look, what you've outlined is the complexity of what we have to navigate through. And I guess it's one of the things, it's difficult for the Crown to actually make a definition of mana whenua. And if you have a look at the reforms, it's a suitably wide definition because, again, that's determined at place. So I acknowledge what you're outlining there. The complexity for officials is that it means that there may well be multiple groups that are involved in these things because, of course, we also have post-settlement governance entities involved in the discussions as well too. And the tricky thing with the RM reforms, in particular in the freshwater reforms, is that it seeks to ensure input from all. So unfortunately, I don't think my answer is that much help for you, apart from it's that we acknowledge that those determinations need to be made at place.
Thank you, Eugene. Just a point of clarification. Mari Tapsell is not a councillor. He is a kaumātua that we invite to our Komiti Māori. Thank you for your answer. I have a question, but just reiterating, I guess, what was raised by Councillor Nees with the presentation you've given. And I guess looking from where we sit here and our current engagement that's being undertaken with tangata whenua, I can see that this is certainly a long journey for all of us. I guess the plus side of the presentation is your acknowledgement of our working closely together so that we're not being an extra burden, I guess, for tangata whenua who themselves have a specific role to play in Te Mana o Te Wai space. So I'll let you continue with your presentation, and maybe we can have further discussion around this later in the presentation. Kia ora.
Thank you for that. Certainly that's everything that I needed to cover off right now. I'm mindful Anne's online and is going to be speaking to you within the climate space in particular. So maybe what I may well do is pass over to our Deputy Secretary Anne Hyder for her presentation. But I will stay online if you have further questions for me later on.
Thank you.
All right. I'll make a start. Kia ora everybody again. Thank you for the opportunity to be on your agenda today, together with my colleague Eugene. I'm part of the senior leadership team at the Ministry for the Environment. I oversee a range of different functions, including part of our climate change work program. And one of my areas of responsibility is climate adaptation, which is what I'll be speaking on today, specifically Māori climate adaptation and the climate change adaptation bill. Now, we've put together a slide deck for you, which I hope you have received and have in your packs. I'm not going to try to be brave like Eugene and drive a slideshow and talk to you at the same time. But there should be approximately around 10 slides, I think, in the deck. And there's quite a bit of information in there. I'm not intending to go through each slide in detail, but there is a lot of information in there if you want to refer to it later. So in terms of my approach for today, there's 5 key areas I'd like to cover. Firstly, the government's long-term strategy for adapting to climate change. Secondly, climate change risks and specifically risks affecting Māori. Thirdly, the engagement the government has undertaken with Māori and what we've been hearing, including what we've been hearing from within the Bay of Plenty. Fourthly, Māori-led climate actions is one I'm really excited to be talking to you about, the Māori Climate Platform. And I'll finish up on the development of the climate change adaptation bill. Now, my genuine intention is to try and keep things as brief as I can. I have 20 minutes, I think, for the presentation, and then these 10 minutes for questions. Hopefully I will wrap up sooner so we can have more of a discussion. So I just want to begin by acknowledging the widespread destruction that's occurred not only this year with Cyclone Gabriel and Cyclone Hale, but also over the last few years. There were 3 red warning events in 2021 and 4 in 2022. And those directly impacted, as you all well know, the Bay of Plenty region. Many communities throughout New Zealand, again, including within your region, are still in recovery mode. And that's certainly front of mind, while I know often the media coverage this year has focused on 3 regions that were particularly hit hard. These weather events, they really do illustrate how climate change can and is having a significant impact on our people, on our communities, on our environment, and our economy as a whole. And for Māori, those impacts are very serious. One of the reasons for that is 80% of marae in New Zealand are built on low-lying coastal land or flood-prone rivers, along with urupa and other sites of cultural significance. And we saw the emotional impact in the Hawke's Bay and East Coast of marae and urupa being severely damaged this year and last year as well, I should add. One of the particular challenges is that climate change impacts widen existing inequalities. They hit those who are already stretched the hardest. Now, slide 2, I sincerely do hope you guys have the slides with you. If not, let me know. Slide 2 sets out the key elements of the government's adaptation strategy. Many of you may have heard the phrase the Zero Carbon Act. It's more of a tagline for amendments that were made to the Climate Change Response Act in 2019. Now, those amendments introduced a new framework and pathway for transitioning to a low emissions climate resilient Aotearoa New Zealand, and it included a process for adaptation. Now, that process has generally 3 core components, and this is quite important because when I come back to talk about the bill, you'll see how this is carried through. So risk assessments, prioritisation of those risks, and then the development of a plan. So for New Zealand, the first step was the development of the National Climate Change Risk Assessment that was released in August 2020. And then the legislation requires the government to produce a plan for responding to those risks within 2 years. That was released in August of last year. So we're still within the first year of implementation of that. But I think fair to say our context has shifted dramatically. The planned adaptation work, I've been doing this for nearly 4 years at MFE, has historically been referred to as the poor cousin to mitigation. And the reason for that over time was many felt that if you conceded that we needed to do adaptation work, you were in some way conceding that we weren't going to slow climate change and that the earth would warm. The fact
Anne, can I just interrupt you for a minute here, please, Anne? I'm just going to. Can I just interrupt you here? I just want to ask you if you would like us to show your PowerPoint while you're speaking. Our secretary can actually bring them up while you're speaking.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Slide 2.
Okay. All right. She's going to do that now.
The point I was making is I think the relationship between mitigation and adaptation, and that often adaptation was seen as the poor cousin. However, the earth has already warmed and is warming. And so the world, including New Zealand and including you in Bay of Plenty, we will all need to adapt to climate change because the planet is warming. And that is why we see the increase in severe weather events that we've seen this year and in recent years. So I think the sense that adaptation is a concession to reducing emissions, I think the conversation has certainly evolved and matured there. So I might take you to the next slide. So if we can just jump into slide 3 and 4, these go into detail around the risks facing New Zealand from climate change impacts. So as a result of the earth warming, what is that going to look like for us? So you can see on slide 3, sorry to make you bounce around, it talks about what are the risks that are of particular significance to Māori and ones that will likely have a disproportionate impact on Māori. So as I said earlier, many Māori live in coastal, rural and remote areas, and many marae are built on low-lying coastal or flood-prone rivers. So they are significantly exposed, and we're seeing the direct impact of severe weather events on Māori communities. Climate change affects Māori homes, infrastructure, sites of significance, including marae, urupa, mahi. It also affects Indigenous biodiversity, as well as industries that are a major source of investment and employment for Māori, such as the primary industries and also tourism. Can I skip now to slide 5, which starts to talk about what we've been hearing from our conversations with Māori. And later on in the deck, there's a bit of information around the approach of engagement that the Ministry for the Environment has taken with the National Iwi Chairs Forum. So we've had a formal work program with Iwi Chairs for 3 years now. And it's been a really constructive, useful and positive working relationship together. We have identified priorities, 4 priorities usually each year across emissions reduction, adaptation and data. And we have worked closely with a group associated with the Iwi Chairs Forum known as Ihirangi. And one of the different and I'd say innovative approaches we've utilised within our climate work program has been resourcing Ihirangi to do the direct engagement with Māori communities about climate change. And I'll be really frank, I think they've been much more effective than we could ever hope to be. And one of the reasons for that is often when you turn up as the Ministry for the Environment in Māori communities, and completely understandably, they have no, you're just the Crown. And so they'll talk to you about everything and anything that they want to talk to the Crown about. What we found with working with Ihirangi is they were able to really focus the conversations in on climate change and also their delivery. And I think their approach was no doubt more effective than if the ministry had led that work ourselves. They have worked really closely with us in the development of the first 2 significant national plans that came through the Zero Carbon Act, the emissions reduction plan that was released last year, and referred to the National Adaptation Plan. One thing, if you could go to slide 8, one thing that they advocated strongly for was funding for what they called climate navigators. And the initial proposal was to fund 40 climate navigators across New Zealand to support Māori communities to understand what climate change would mean for them and to help them assess, prepare and plan for that. Where we got to was in budget 22 last year was the allocation of just over $30 million to establish a Māori climate platform. And I know that that is a bit of an unusual phrase. We didn't quite know what to call it because we intentionally did not want to call it a strategy. And the reason for that is that there was no strategy and no plan. It was simply a putia that had been set aside that would help support Māori to develop their climate action plan and strategy themselves. And in order to figure out how we were going to distribute that money, the Minister for Climate Change, James Shaw, established a ministerial advisory committee at the end of last year. that committee is set up to advise him on how that fund should be distributed and applied to support Māori-led climate action. Now, the appointment of that committee is important because we worked closely with our partners at Iwi Chairs. There's a dedicated PO for climate within the Iwi Chairs Forum. And we went to them and said, we want this Ministerial Advisory Committee to be one that you consider has, I guess, the right people on it in your perspective. So we essentially handed the process over to them. The Ministry for the Environment provided secretarial support for the process, but they ran it. They set up a nominating panel and sought applications and identified the committee members. They have been meeting regularly since the end of last year and are preparing advice that will go to Minister Shaw in August as to how that fund should be applied. My understanding of their current thinking is that the core priority for that money will be risk assessments and supporting Māori communities to be able to undertake those. If I could go to the next slide, and I'll just dock in that risk assessment point. One of our focuses at the moment at the Ministry for the Environment is just how we ensure that that work that will be led by Māori communities is docking in and supported by this new climate adaptation bill and system that will come through. So if a Māori community identifies a certain amount of risk that they are facing and what adaptation measures might be needed to address those, you would want that to be connected into the broader adaptation system. So we've got a bit of work to do to see how that is going to play out. But let me just jump into the conversation about the climate adaptation bill. Where are we? Tuesday. On Thursday of this week, the Environment or the MCAB committee has a paper before it in which Minister Shaw is proposing a process. And if I can ask, oh, this has been streamed live, isn't it? I was going to ask if this could be kept confidential. I'll just speak about it at a high level then. He is proposing a process that would involve the use of a select committee inquiry to advance the key questions and challenges and issues within the climate adaptation bill. And there's probably 4 key areas that are in the problem definition as it currently stands. The first is that there's no direction to act. So we have a mixed uptake across local authorities around adaptation planning, and there's a range of dynamics and factors affecting that. Some it can be simply due to resourcing, capacity, capability. In other areas it can be, well, there are other more pressing priorities as to why adaptation planning hasn't occurred. And there's also areas in which there are significant risks and concerns around pushing into that area because some councils have been litigated against when they have taken steps in this area. So probably the first key piece within the bill is, within the system, is clarifying that and introducing a mandatory direction to act. Those tools won't sit within the bill itself. We will utilise the RM system for that and the new RM system as well. There is work underway on that, which I'm happy to speak about too, around natural hazards policy frameworks. The second area is that there is no funding framework in place. And given that the most probably well-known example of managed retreat in New Zealand lies in your region, in Matata, I'm sure I don't need to talk too much about that, you'll all be well aware. The third area, there are limited powers for retreat. And the fourth is Māori face barriers to participation. So those are the 4 parts of the problem definition that have been identified in the work to date. And what is being proposed for ministers to consider this week is that a white paper is prepared by MFE and used as the basis for a select committee inquiry. We'll have to see what ministers think about that proposal, but certainly I think the use of an inquiry together with the white paper is intended to reflect the magnitude of these questions and the complexity of the issues. And I would say that these are of such a level that they are, it's a national conversation that needs to take place as to how they will be addressed. And I think the last point I'll make before I open up for questions is just Māori rights and interests is across all of those areas. And I mentioned at the start that cycle of risk assessment, identifying priorities, planning. You can see that that's been carried through. So central government has a requirement to do that under the Climate Change Response Act. And what we would be doing is utilising various different legislation to require that of local authorities as well. Right, there's a lot of information. I will leave it there. I think I didn't achieve my goal of speaking to 20 minutes, but very happy to take questions and open up the discussion.
Floor is open to the members. Councillor McMillan.
Oh, kia ora. So with the RM reform, obviously it's sort of like a 7-year transition. And then in terms of natural hazards, managed relocation and the 4 key points that you kind of raised, what are the levers in that interim period? Like, obviously, you know, we've got this slow motion train wreck coming at us, which is climate change and the need to adapt. And that's quite a long, 7 years in that space is quite a long period of time. So even if that looks perfect, once the reform is nutted out, what do we do in the interim?
Yeah, great question. So I think probably a bit of context here is what happened in Auckland on Auckland Anniversary Weekend and the media coverage regarding the location of residential properties in flood-prone areas. So the question was raised by ministers as to what might be some interventions and tools that we can use to stop this issue getting worse. So there's essentially 2 steps being considered here. The first is one that can be put together in the next, and it's utilising the existing RM system, I should say. The first is developing a national policy statement on natural hazard decision making. And time frame wise, we're hoping to have that done within the next 6 months, and that will help local authorities, I think, with decision making around consents, but also within your planning documents. Alongside that, there is a proposal also going to ministers for consideration. So no decisions have been taken, but there is a proposal for developing a comprehensive natural hazard planning framework. And that work is very early days, and I wouldn't expect anything to be coming out on that before the election. The current thinking is post-election, potentially having a consultation document ready to go, maybe at the end of this year or early next year. So and that would subsume that first NPS that I talked about, either replace it or integrate it. So the way we saw it is we need to get something in place very quickly, but we also need a more enduring solution for that. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in this. I'm really happy to organise someone to come back and talk to you in more detail, but that might give you a bit of a sense of, I think, the general direction and the fact that I think the government's approach to adaptation is distributed across a range of different mechanisms. The Climate Adaptation Bill will be one, the actions in the National Adaptation Plan will be another, and then utilising the existing RM and new RM system as best we can.
Kia ora, thank you.
So Crosby.
Kia ora, Anne, and thank you for the presentation. A lot in there, obviously, and it's a very complex issue. In a way, you partly answered the question just with your last response about, you know, the various mechanisms that will be used to seek to address this. But in short, there are some immediate issues, there's some medium term and very long term. And my understanding is that, for example, managed retreat is a very long term planning and action. Where, though, and it may not be in your patch, is the issue around resourcing. You know, tomorrow, the Future for Local Government panel are going to release their report. And it's very clear already that local government is stretched in terms of its capability and capacity to manage these issues. And one of the risks is that I see, and I do appreciate MFE is more of a planning, has a planning response. One of the risks is that the government of the day, as you said, potentially will force councils to do this and to do that, which has been a history for the last 30 years with little or no cognizance of the ability to help pay for all this. So in your work or any of the other panels' work, and maybe Eugene might want to step in here, is there going to be some resourcing, at least in the planning stage, let alone in the delivery stage of whatever the planning might produce?
Thank you. The short answer is the funding framework will be the most critical part, I'd argue, of the climate adaptation bill. So the cabinet paper I talked about that's going to ministers this week talks about the importance of councils needing a stable and predictable form of funding in order to be able to do climate adaptation work. I'm aware that the Future of Local Government report also underscores the importance of funding support for local authorities in adaptation. So I think there's widespread recognition that there will need to be funding. The question is, where will it come from, and I guess the scale and how will it be distributed? But I think we're definitely off the starting blocks that we need to figure out how this will be resourced. And that will be, I think, part of the select committee inquiry. And I think it's something that many New Zealanders will take a strong interest in, including local authorities, and wanting to shape and influence what that might look like. I will just make an associated point to that. There is, following Cyclone Gabriel, the phrase managed retreat took on a life of its own, and it led, I think, it lifted expectations that that was the solution to climate change impacts. The fact of the matter is, we will not be able to retreat from more climate change impacts. You may be able to retreat from one, but you may face another. So 2 years ago, conversations around adaptation were almost squarely focused on coastal hazards. We weren't talking about flood-prone areas. That's the new focus now. And if you look overseas, there's a number of other climate change impacts affecting countries, wildfires, droughts, heat waves. So there's a range of different impacts. And so I think there is a conversation for us to be having as New Zealanders around learning to live with climate change. And certainly part of our thinking is that when we are considering adaptation options, we are considering the full suite. Managed retreat is a last resort, and that there are a range of other interventions, tools and steps that communities should be considering. And I would expect funding to include some assessment of whether the proposed adaptation option is the most effective one for the risks that an area is facing.
Thank you, Anne. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh.
I've got two hands on screen. I will go Councillor Thompson and then Eugene.
Thank you. Prior to this presentation, I was feeling absolutely overwhelmed by the reform that's coming at local government. I'm now in a complete and utter state of bewilderment and overwhelmment, quite frankly. But thank you, and it's been a fascinating presentation. Here in the Western Bay in particular, we are going hell for leather implementing the NPS urban development. What I'm struggling to understand, Anne, is how the NPS decision-making, natural hazard NPS rather, will actually impact on all of the decisions that we're currently making and are being asked to make within the next few months in terms of the NPS urban development. In other words, it seems to me that they're clashing, but there's no clear direction on actually what we do. And is that the intention behind the NPS natural hazard decision making, to give us some clarity in that space? Thank you.
Yeah. Firstly, just acknowledge your first point. There is a lot happening, and I can completely appreciate how you're feeling. And I think more conversations like this between central and local authorities, I think, can help at least just provide more context as to what's going on. But it's definitely intense, and there's a lot happening. There is a tension between the two pieces of work that you identified, and we need to provide the clarity that you're seeking. So it's well understood that on the one hand, we can't be saying stop building in risky places and then saying please build more houses. So we have to find a way to balance these out, and that is certainly in the frame for what we're hoping the national direction will achieve. Should I pass to Eugene? He's got his hand up as well. I'm mindful we're over time too.
Yes, Eugene.
Oh, yes. So just really quickly, I just wanted to respond to the previous speaker's question regarding resourcing. As has been outlined, capacity and capability resourcing has been provided for freshwater reforms. It is factored into the budgets for RM reform that is just being confirmed now, and then Anne outlined in terms of climate. So I guess what I can outline is the ministry has acknowledged the need for local support. It's just going through the processes that we need to in terms of budget cycles to be able to put that into place.
Probably one more point I'll just make is we're learning as we're going at the moment with the recovery work. So the rest of my day is going to be spent on a paper going to a cabinet committee this week around how we triage funding support for councils in the recovery regions. If I can just speak plainly, New Zealand's recovery system is still maturing, and I think it was what I was thinking of when Councillor Thompson was speaking. Is we are running hell for leather trying to build this recovery system because the severe weather events are just so frequent and so extreme at the moment. I think it came sooner than many of us anticipated. When I used to talk about climate change to audiences similar to this, I think many people thought I was just talking about some almost fictitious type scenario. Many people would just sort of glaze over and look at me like, okay, because it felt like it was a long way away. It felt like we had decades up our sleeve, but it's arrived. And I think all levels of government are doing their best in a very intense period of time. I might wrap it up there unless there are other questions in the room. Sorry that I've gone over time.
I think I might just open it up again, and this is quite a...
in your hands, Captain.
Yeah, I'll just open up for further questions. Any of our councillors, te hoa Maru? Any on Zoom? No questions from councillors. I'm going to allow Maru to ask. Maru, I'm going to allow you to ask a question.
Yes, I'm interested as when the preparation for going before the select committee, the timing. It's highly important in my view because it could be a political mummery or it could be misconstrued with the social media at this particular time. So the timing is very important so that everybody is on board.
Understood. What has been proposed is that the inquiry would kick off in August. If the paper goes through successfully, it's also been proposed that the select committee inquiry would be a joint committee comprising members from the Environment Committee and the Māori Affairs Committee. And within the Environment Committee, really looking to bring over the lessons and the understandings from the RM reform process so that they are connected. So initiates in August, it will likely, if that occurs, be early August and run for a month before Parliament closes down for the election. And then assuming the new government of the day wishes to pick this work up again, it will start post-election or continue its inquiry post-election. And we are expecting through to sort of March, April.
You, Councillor Thompson, I'll take yours as our last question.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. And here in the Western Bay, Kāinga Ora are undertaking an assessment of a special development area. There's only 2 of these investigations happening across the country at the present point in time. Can I just ask you whether the NPS natural hazard decision making will be on Kāinga Ora's radar in terms of needing to have regard to the provisions of that? Thank you.
I can't speak for them, but HUD, the Ministry for Housing and Urban Development, would be closely involved and are considered to be sort of one of the lead critical agencies for this work. So we're fully expecting to be having these sort of conversations because of that friction that I mentioned. It's like, how do we achieve both outcomes safely?
That was our last question, Anne, but I just want to thank you for your presentation. Yeah, I guess we're kind of all a bit overwhelmed this morning after the presentations, but, you know, it is what it is and it's work in progress for all of us. Hopefully, we will see you again. I would like to invite you back to come and give us a progress of, you know, what's happening maybe 2 or 3 months down the track. And then, you know, just so that we can focus on our alignment with what's happening in your space and where we're going in our space as well. So, you know, thanks for the presentation. I just want to go back to you, Eugene, since this is your overall presentation. Thank you for your team, but I'm going to leave some last words to you if you want to add, given now that all your team has spoken.
Yes, thank you. Look, really, I guess that the key thing is, as outlined in my presentation, working closer together is going to be the only way that we are going to get the transformation into taia that we're looking for. So certainly want to reiterate, personally, I live in Arotoa, my taisa te arua me mā tātua waka, so more than happy to come across in person, me kānohi ki te kānohi, but also catch up, because through that connectivity and the kōrero, for me, that's the only way that we're going to get these things across the line. But deeply appreciate your time this morning and look forward to working closer with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, everyone, we've now come to our morning tea break, so we will take the break. I'm sure we're all a bit brain weary after the presentation, so let's break for morning tea. Thank you. Kia ora, councillors. Welcome back to our second session. We'll go straight into our presentations. I'd just like to welcome Āwhina and Te Horipo from Toi Kairawa. Looking forward to your update. So I'm not going to hold it up. I'm just going to hand the rākau to you both. Kia kōrua.
Tātou. I hope you heard the tātou at the end there. Kia ora, tātou. So I just finished introducing myself by saying where my tribal affiliation. So I'm grounded here in Tauranga Moana. This is where I was raised. I'm from Ngaiterangi, Ngāti Ranginui, but I also have whakapapa into Ngāti Rangi Wewehi and in the Eastern Bay, Te Whakatohea and Te Whanāpanui. We'll be co-presenting today. Do you want to give, yeah, maybe you give your introduction.
Kia ora anō, horipo kei te ana taku ingoa, a kura koutou ka te māmo I rabu vai ki tai hawa I kiuta, ka hununu ki te wairarapa rangi tānei hoke. My name is Horipo. Given the focus on whenua Māori, part of my career was as a clerical cadet in the Department of Māori Affairs, Māori Land Court, Māori Trustee, and fast forwarding to today, proud to be on Wairarapa Moana Incorporation. And we're shareholders and set up Miraka, which is our export player in terms of dairy, and we run 12,000 cows in Mangakino. Over here in Tauranga Moana, I'm privileged to be the CEO of Te Awa Nui Oka Pack, which is a collective of Māori landowners and a trust board, and the commonality is kiwi fruit. Given the focus, as I mentioned, on whenua Māori, also involved at a national level in terms of BERSA, which is the Climate Change Science Accelerator, New Zealand Greenhouse Gas Research Centre, and the Agri-Tech ITP. Hoi anō, ngā mihi ana kia koutou.
We do have a presentation. Shari, if you can load that up for us, that would be great. So how we want to structure this, councillors, is I will start by providing an overview and a quick update on Toi Kairawa, where we're at now. And then when we're drilling down specifically to the kaupapa of the day, which is an update on our whenua Māori mahi, I'll hand it over to Te Horipo to speak on that. So this council has supported Toi Kairawa, and it's been a hell of a 3 years. I think it's been a year and a half since we last presented to this committee. We've gone through some significant changes, some really great changes, but the latest is that we have a new board, which is shown up on our screen here. We still have Tamarapa Lloyd, our chairman, Te Horipo Karaitiana, our executive trustee, and then we've got Kerry Ann Hancock, Roku Mihinui, Tatiana Kiwi Knight, Manu Keri, Marino Tahi, and Tia Smith, all of whom have significant experience across the research and science space. What else are all the other areas? Te Horipo?
Yeah, research, science, technology, whenua Māori, and commercialisation, I guess, of science. Commercialisation on whenua Māori, and also deep networks within the communities right across the wider Bar Plenty.
So we're coming just out of startup mode, and with now having a full complement on our board, we've really forecasting for growth. This is what's where we've landed with our strategy. And so our purpose is to awaken, weave and incubate solutions to ignite Māori economies in the wider bay, with a particular focus on progressive procurement. So we've been doing a lot of mahi in this space across Māori businesses. We are embarking on a whenua Māori advisory with a particular focus on collectives. And then we've been doing a significant mahi in the high value capability development, not only with rangatahi, but across the whole spectrum. And then of course, we've got a particular focus on showcasing regional innovation and excellence. So the councillors may recall that we had 4 order areas, our strategic priority areas. We've consolidated this to 3 areas, pakihi, tangata and whenua. And so who's going to be leading up the implementation of this is a small team led by myself. And so what's really great about our team is how we work with teams across sectors to build scale. So here's a bit of a snapshot of, I suppose, our 5-year work plan. And what's important to share with you guys is that what we are projecting for is doubling down on what we've been doing really well at across pakihi, tangata and whenua, and then we're forecasting for growth. So within our mahi that we've been contracted to do within the regional council, that work has been in around Māori business networks. That's been around our STEAM program called Hihiko Te Rawa Auaha, which is doing really well, and it's scaling to 50 schools in the next 3 years. But the particular focus of today's kōrero is in regards to our mahi in the whenua space. And so I'll hand over to Te Horipo to take us through that.
So just to reiterate what Awhina has been saying, we've got 3 key foci areas. We deploy a Matauranga Māori framework called Māori Order, and that is expressed in those 3 order areas up there. So what is the big picture stuff? In terms of Pākehī Order, it's around facilitating demand and supply for social procurement, and there's an aggregation role that is required, and that's a place and space for Toi Kairawa, and also a capability building place and space. So that's how do we ignite Māori business networks across the region to be able to fulfil potential procurement requirements. So that's Pākehī Order. Tangata Order is around really people development and community development. So how do we get more Māori, and more than 50% of Māori are 24 years of age and under within the region. So how do we change their trajectory into high value jobs? You have to do that at every level. And we have a knowledge transfer framework around awareness, participation, attainment and ability. And we have initiatives right across that spectrum to ensure that we're building a pipeline. And the other key foci is increasing digital literacy and using the Hihiko Te Rawa Auaha program across the wider region, and our rangatahi initiatives, and that initiative have been very successful. And then finally whenua order, which we're going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into. So if we look at whenua Māori, most of us are born into whenua Māori if you're a Māori, and there's about 1.2 million hectares of Māori land in New Zealand, and around 1 million hectares of that, just under 1 million hectares, is administered by 400 Māori trusts and corporations under predominantly the Māori Land Act. So typically they're off the radar from mainstream. And then when you look at the Bay of Plenty, just under 40% of all the land in the wider Bay of Plenty within your catchment area, the Manawatoi, is Māori land. So that's significant. Similarly, the diversity in terms of iwi hapu marae, and you'll see it up there, over 35-ish iwi, 230 hapu and 163 marae. A third of what is termed the Māori economy sits in this region. And again, that's another, the combination of all of those things up there makes this a unique region, and one where there is opportunity in terms of facilitating the potential of whenua Māori, which are intricately connected to hapori or Māori communities. Let's go to the next slide. So if we all want to put, I guess, the aspirations of Māori collectives, and as I mentioned, there can be trusts and corporations or trust boards, etc. You can sum it up with this statement. Te Ao Māori can be summed up in the context of whenua Māori, where our connected ecosystem of predominantly Māori collectives that exist within our own context of Te Ao Māori, who apply our own matauraka Māori to exercise our authority, mana whakahaere, to achieve our aspirations, mana motuahake, and self-determination, tino rangatiratanga, as defined by them. And one of the key ways that Toikarawa operates is we don't imply what success means on any of the initiatives that we work with and the groups that we work with. It's up to them to define what success looks like for them. And that fundamental approach is pretty important. So there's a lot in that statement, but if we want to put it in one statement, there it is there. I guess if we try and unpack that a little bit, I think this is my final slide. Yeah, and we want to make sense of this world. It comes down to three spheres: government, Te Ao Māori, and the world, the macro world in which we exist, Te Ao Hurihuri. Some of the key trends or things that's happening at the moment, let's for example say in the kawangatanga space, is there's a reset around the treaty relationship. What does that mean? That means the hierarchy of rights as it relates to the treaty is much wider than just the treaty itself. One of the primal rights, for example, is tikanga, and we don't rely on government for that to exist, for example. The other interesting aspect around the hierarchy of rights, which is being tested in courts and in the tribunal as we speak, there's much more than just the PSGEs and iwi. In addition to that, there are rights that pertain to hapu, there are rights that pertain to whānau, there are rights that pertain to ahi ka and whenua Māori. In fact, the predominant right sits in that place and space. So there's I guess, a treaty reset in terms of the environment and the interrelationship with government going on at the moment. If you look at some of the commentary from Will Workman, who is a commentator on Māori government issues, he refers to the old school protection partnership participation as a bit dated, and how do we express tino rangatiratanga in conjunction with government to achieve orititanga. There's a lot of sort of kupu Māori in there, but if you want to really distill it down to the key issues, those are the key issues. We're also finding, and it's a shame Te Taru's not here, is Māori are now influencing what the trade policy and agenda looks like internationally in terms of our geopolitical relationships offshore, and that's thanks to organisations like Te Taumata, which Te Taru is an intricate part of, and you'll start to see that reflected in the way that we deal with free trade agreements, with Māori already having significant input into the UK free trade agreement and the EU free trade agreements. The other thing in terms of government is it's a really, really, really busy space at the moment. Yeah, there are so many initiatives that have been initiated by government in respect of whenua Māori. It's quite overwhelming. Equally overwhelming is the amount of regulation, etc., that's up for discussion at the moment. Literally, this government is reviewing every single sector, from RMA to the vocational trade training to health, etc. So whenua Māori trustees and boards feel overwhelmed if we're to engage in this wave of regulatory conversations that government across the whole myriad of government want to try and have. The key maxim, though, is by Māori for Māori. And we believe the Regional Council not only has the opportunity to lead a reset and redesign of those treaty relationships, but also to facilitate by Māori for Māori whenua solutions. If we look at Te Ao Hurihuri, golly gosh, geopolitically, globally, nationally, locally, within the Pacific, everything is just kind of crazy at the moment. So if we were to sum up our reaction in one word, it's resilience. How do we build resilience? How do we build resilience? And if we were to ask what is our superpower, it's got to be Te Ao Māori Matauraka Māori. It's got us here so far and will get us where we're moving. So for our whenua Māori communities, our superpower is exactly that, Te Ao Māori Matauraka Māori. And Te Ao Māori Matauraka Māori, I report, is a generic term unless it's landed in place and people, and then it's very specific. And often in whai kōrero, you'll hear about the reference of the centre of the universe in terms of where you're standing, which is cosmetisation of place. But what that really means, it's landing Te Ao Māori Matauraka Māori into a specific place and within a specific defined group of people. That's pretty much the fly through hitting, I guess, the key issues. One I forgot was actually this notion within the RS&I sector, which is also being reviewed, is this notion that Western science working alongside Matauranga Māori. And it's an interesting place in space because, again, it should be led by the holders of Matauranga Māori. And in that RS&I space, we're in search of world-class science, no matter where it's from, that can solve solutions for us that can work alongside Matauranga Māori. So if we want to put one phase in the whole RS&I sector, that's it. So I guess to summarise some of the recommendations in the report, which you may have just received, so I respect that, and it'll just really, there's three key themes. First one is by Māori for Māori. Māori have the solutions for their situation when it comes to Matauranga Māori. They look typically through a different lens, and that is typically a triple lens through their ancestors, through their mokopuna or grandchildren, and through their own eyes. Māori are rapidly moving into what I call the vertical and horizontal. So in horticulture, for example, it's no longer just kiwi fruit, there's apples and other categories along the horizontal, and then into the vertical, which means we're involved in research, science, IP, all the way through to markets. And that's a rapid trend that isn't going to slow down. And you're seeing the results of that, and some of you understand went to the Māori Horticulture Awards on Friday, and you'll see 3 exemplars of that place and space that were showcased then. And the final one is around re-emphasising by Māori for Māori. We're using this term as Solutions Lab. Let people design the solutions for themselves and support those. And in some cases, recognising you're stewarding public money, there needs obviously to be all those checks and balances in place. Finally, just check my notes here. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Did I miss anything out, Awhina? It's just high level, councillors, sorry, so I'm not dropping into a lot of detail, but happy to take questions that may relate to detail in respect of anything that we've said. Sorry, that was what I forgot. So where do we start in a busy space in terms of whenua Māori? We want to pull Māori collectives together and have a broad conversation around innovation. If you went to the recent FOMA conference, Federation of Māori Authorities, it was all about regulation, government, policy, which is great. But now we need to have a conversation around, let's just lift our heads, look into the future and start envisioning what that actually looks like. We don't know what we don't know. We know that we have to be resilient, and we know that Te Ao Māori Matauraka Māori is our superpower. So let's pull people together to have a conversation around broadly speaking, innovation. Koe anō, e mea ana ki a koutou ki a tātou katoa.
Ngā mihi kia kōrua. Councillors, I'm going to open the floor for questions, if there are any. Councillor Nees.
Kia ora. Thank you.
Councillor Chairman Leader, and it's our order. Any hands? I can't see any hands on the Zoom. So, Councillor Nees.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I was just having a look at your 5-year work plan and your presentation. So that year 1 and this is this year, is that right?
That's the coming year.
Right. So this is 5 years out. Yep. Okay. Have you that you've reported back to us on your whenua Māori stream of work, but are you able to provide us a snapshot of what you've done over the past 3 years while we funded you?
Sure.
last year in particular, we had quite a busy year, and I've provided here is my notes, 25 initiatives with a reach of up to 3,400 people. We engaged with 56 schools across our programs. We scaled a couple of our programs nationwide, being Ko Māui Hangaro, the Māori Tech and Innovation Summit, so we did that in Porirua and Tāmaki last year, and also we've scaled out and rolled out our Māori professional internship program across beyond kiwifruit but into horticulture, and it's refined now to scale across the wider primary industries. Those two programs have been recognised as finalists in 2 national awards, being the New Zealand Diversity Awards and the Matihiko Awards. So those are some of the high-level outcomes from the previous year. Do you want to add to that?
Everything we've done didn't exist previously. And with the help of the Regional Council, these initiatives that do have impact exist now. And not only exist now, but there's that three-year track record of success that can be used to leverage the way forward for the next 5 years.
Kia ora, te horopo, Whina. Look, this is just a comment more than a question. As you know, whenua Māori is a broad brush of considerations, but from my experience, it's a long journey. And I think that the new generation of Māori, you know, well-educated, experienced, are the ones who are going to give you the biggest shift. And the biggest challenge I find is the entities that I'm involved in, it's the lack of governance, corporate governance experience, where, to be frank, the trustees, well-meaning trustees, are exposed to a raft of corporate raiders who just rip them off. And it's only the young people coming through with good education that are going to turn that around. So, you know, I look at things like the Whenua Māori Fund run through TPK, and I don't actually see that getting a lot of cut through. Maybe we need to put some more effort, or you need to put some more effort to ensuring that some of those governance skills, because those entities interface on a daily basis with the commercial world as opposed to old Māori world. And some of those older trustees, you know, who are sitting around those corporations and trust tables, you know, they need some help. So I'd just be interested in your comment on that. I'm surprised that you're here, although that trade mission to China has not actually left yet, has it? Isn't he going next week?
Not much to sell, really. Some milk powder and some fish, and then the rest is quite some way behind. But so there's 2 initiatives that we've stood up. One is we fast prototype into the gaps. One of the gaps was the undergrad internship program. So we've won 2 cohorts of those now. And I got to say, the talent coming through the pipeline is just phenomenal, and the future's in good hands. That's my view as an older person. So what we're also in the design phase at the moment is standing up a governance internship program. And that's to get more of this Māori talent onto exactly those situations that you've mentioned, but in a highly supportive way, by having mentors and a whole integration and support program, which we've well prototyped through our internship program and our people development initiatives. So we are doing a little bit of work in that space, and if there's a dollar you can spend anywhere, I'd put it into capability development. The vocationals end of town was just so busy, so that's why we went into that undergrad and then focus on that governance end of town.
Councillor McMillan.
Oh, kia ora, thanks so much. Just wondering, and it's probably in here, but where does regenerative sit in this space of Papatuanuku kind of focus horticulture industry? Is it overarching over the top of everything, or how does it weave in?
The answer's everywhere, and simply because if you look at Māori landowners that we've dealt with, you know, what's dear to their heart, as I mentioned, is the aspirations of tūpuna themselves and grandchildren and great grandchildren, but it's all within the context of whenua ora, tangata ora. They don't, they coexist. So when we're looking at the taiao, you actually, within that holistic lens, you actually are providing a causal positive effect in terms of climate change, etc. And one of the foundational approaches absolutely is this notion of a regen, even though it's defined in a whole lot of different ways. But fundamentally, whenua ora, tangata ora, if the land is well, the people are well. Doesn't get much more complicated than that. And you're seeing much more practice that reinforce that now, I've got to say. And you're also seeing the richness of Matauranga Māori that relates to that place and those specific people also being brought forward. So that's a really exciting area of contemporary development.
Do I have any other questions from the floor? Maru?
Yeah, I think this is an excellent report. But it also cures the situation of inflation. Inflation is a tax that's been imposed, high cost of living and all that sort of thing. I call it GST, causing inflation. What you've produced is GYO, grow your own. And that's the emphasis of it. And if you look backwards, if you put your rear vision mirror on and look backwards, you would find after the war, we built the dams, we built all those, we had training schemes, and that was demolished by corporate raiding Roger Douglas and his lot. We now have an education system that is, their economy is based on immigration. Where's grow your own in that? And so that's highly important that what you're doing is that we can grow our own. And with the treaty settlements, we now own the Central North Island forest. All the logs on the wharf actually belongs to, but we don't know how to collaborate and create those industries that we should be entitled to do. So this is a statement more than anything else. But just, yeah, I endorse your presentation. It's actually something that I've been trying to get across the table for ages.
Do you have any other questions? No questions. Just comments from me, from the chair. Thank you for the presentation. I really want to take note of your statements around the superpower, and I totally support that. The superpower being Te Ao Māori and Mātauranga Māori. I also want to applaud that you're using the whenua and what I'm perceiving in your presence as the connector, and you're absolutely right. Across the sub-region, it is the whenua that will connect us all into the superpower. It is the whenua and it is the whanaungatanga that goes to that whenua that will allow us to abridge our constituencies and even going outside of our own rohe. So I applaud you for coming back and giving that as the basis on how you would move forward in this space. I also want to raise your comments around the Ahu Whenua Trust, which many of us attended that evening, which I guess is the glowing evidence that you're speaking about and how we can prosper in the development of Māori land. We acknowledge that it is not the case for all our Māori landowners out there, and it's work in progress. But given the initiatives that you're looking to progress over the coming years, we will get there. I'm very optimistic that we will. Just the comments made by our chairman leader, he is absolutely right. But I guess we have to take into account these are the challenges that we are looking to break down. And I think in the work that we're doing, we will get there too. I agree that we have a younger generation that are coming through with brilliant skills and qualifications that will take us to that level. So I guess, you know, it's the old saying, mā te wā. But to remain optimistic, we will get there. And I want to thank you for coming today to giving their presentation. We have been waiting some time, I guess, to hear the presentation today. And I thank you for that. Nō reira, ngā mihi kia kōrua.
If we could just say something very briefly, and that is we are grateful for the council's support. We would not be where we are right now without that, and we're very grateful for that support.
Sorry, we're into our last stage of our presentations. I'm going to hand the rako to Kataraina to introduce our students for the He Tokatu Moana Scholarship recipients. Kia ora, Kataraina.
Tēnā koe, Madam Chair, tēnā hoki koutou councillors and staff. Just draw your attention to page 19 of our agenda, bullet point 1.3, where we've outlined He Tokatu Moana. This is our student scholarships that we award annually. And it's really exciting because we, through mechanisms like this and our Summons Student program and other ways of supporting our leaders and our kaitiaki of the future, we have a great cohort of successful recipients for this year. There were 13 applications, all stunning, and we awarded 8 scholarships. And the assessment process tries to look at a diverse range of recipients, from gender to different levels of education, from the ones just starting on their journey to our PhD students. We have a stunning cohort. Now they are going to present to you. It is exam time. It's the break for our students. So many of them, or all of them, couldn't be here. Some of them are going to join you on Zoom, and some have done a pre-recording. Following that, we have a winter student who is here with us for winter study. He's sitting at the back and he's going to speak to you. His name is Sam. He'll introduce himself. Now, he's come through the Instead program and is studying at Harvard University, and we're very proud of his progress. And so he's going to speak to you about his journey in becoming a future kaitiaki and a future leader. So we have our online students first, and they're all looking gorgeous and ready to rock and roll for us. They are going to, if I can just ask the students if you can translate into English, just generally your kōrero if you are speaking Māori. The video recordings that are in Māori for the councillors learning on this journey, we have Ruben Gardner who will provide a translation for you. So without further ado, I believe our first Zoom student successful recipient is Hika Wai Te Nahu. Kei kora te rākau e hoa.
Aotira tēnā tātou. E mihi kau ana ki a koutou mā, ai whakatūwhera I tēnei ara hei hipoi mā mātou. Mātou a koutou uri. Mātou katoa e whaiwhai ana I enei ara hei aha, hei oranga mā mātou, hei oranga mo tō tātou iwi o te arawa. O tira mā tātou ngā tangata e noho nei roto I te wairiki, no roto rua no hoki. Ko ai tēnei, he uri tēnei no te arawa. He uri hoki tēnei no te tairāwhiti. Oku honanga ki te arawa, he honanga tēnei, he uri tēnei no tūhaurangi, Ngāti whakaue, Ngāti rangi wewehi, weneku kōpako. He raukura o te kura kaupapa Māori o Ruamata. He tauira ki Waipapa Taumatarau ko tēnei taku tau whakamutunga. Good morning, greetings and salutations to us all. Ko ai tēnei, I'm Hiko Wai Te Nahu. I am a descendant of the many beautiful tribes of the East Coast, but also within here, Rotorua, Te Arawa Waka, those being Tūhaurangi Ngāti Whakauwe, Ngāti Rangiwewehi, Wēnuku Kōpako. I'm a graduate of Te Kura Kaupapa Māori o Ruamata, and am in my final year, going into my final semester here at Auckland University, studying a conjoint degree in a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Science, those being Māori Studies and Environmental Science. So koe rā hau, taku haerenga, I guess my journey has been one blessed with education, blessed with aroha from my whānau, my school, my kura. My upbringing has been one that has been very enriched in te ao Māori, and my educational journey has been one staunch in te aho matua, staunch in ngā atua Māori, and one that's been very insightful is this journey, this haerenga here at university. Quite an interesting one, especially going from a class of 10 students at a tiny school in Rotorua to a class of 200, 300 students of 40,000 students here at the University of Auckland in a city of 1 million plus people. And to say that I've made it to the end of my studies is quite awesome. And that's thanks to a lot of my whānau for supporting me, and especially a lot of our iwi organisations, iwi governance, a lot of our whānau and land trusts who have helped along the way. And koe rā te kaupapa matua o taku taenga mai I te rānei he tuku mihi. He tuku mihi kauana ki a koutou nā koutou I whakae mai. Kia koha mai ki au ko tēnei o ngā karahipi otira mātou ngā tauira e waru. And so a big thanks first and foremost is to all of you who graciously decided that I should be one of the 8 students who shall receive a scholarship to help us get through these times as young, poor students. So mihi ana ki a koutou. In terms of the list of things that you guys wanted us to mention, I've forgotten, so I think ko tai pea te unga o taku waka ki reira, unless I forgot to mention something else, but haunga I tērā ka whiua te rākau kōrero. Kia ora rā.
Kia ora, Hiko Wai, and we're very proud of your achievements. Kia ora. Our next Zoom recipient is Te mai ora Ruruhe. Kei aku te rākau e hoa.
Hoi anō, kia ora tātou. I hail from the Urawera Forest, from the people of Tūhoe, and I was given as a whāngai to the people here in Rotorua of Tūhaurangi Ngāti Wāheo. For my first 10 years, I spent in Minganui. For those of you who don't know where that is, it's just beyond Murupara. I attended Kohanga Primary into a little bit of intermediate before I was sent here to Rotorua for education and other purposes. From there, I went to Rotorua Boys High School and to Waikato University. I graduated 2021 and I have been working for nearly 2 years now with Annette Sykes. I graduated with a Bachelor of Laws and a Bachelor of Arts conjoint degree, and now am pursuing a Master's in Environmental Law at Pace University in America. I ended up at this university through a Google search, just asking what the best environmental law school in America is, and Pace, as well as Colorado and another university, were ranked #1 at that time, but this year, apparently Pace has the #1 title on its own. Looking to do a global specialization, and that starts in about August. Yeah, and already thankful for the proceeds of this fund. There have been fees associated with visa applications, move-in fees for apartments and things like that. And thanks to the scholarship, I've been able to meet those fees. The particular focus of my studies is legal personality. For those of you who may not be aware, that was granted to Te Uruwera Forest back in 2014, to the Whanganui River in 2017. And I think Taranaki and the Kāhui Mounga are in negotiations to have that conferred on Taranaki and the Kāhui Mounga, the collective of mountains down there. Yeah, and the idea is to test. And I heard the conversation this morning about climate change adaptation with Anne Hira, is to test how far you can assert the rights of the environment. So let's say that I'm the Te Uruwera Forest. Can I assert a right not to be polluted, not to have my trees cut down? And the theory at this stage is that it's a further protective mechanism for the environment, which I think complements what was being talked about this morning in terms of climate change adaptation. Yeah. I'll be over there for 10 months. I was hoping to take my family over, but it looks like we may not be able to do that just due to how much it costs to live over there. Yeah. So, yeah, thank you very much, Plenty Regional Council. I hope to bring my skills and expertise that I gained through this course back to New Zealand and back to the Bay of Plenty region. Yeah, kia ora tātou.
Oh, tēnā koe te mai ora. Thank you. And what a fabulous journey that you're on. Hopefully by the time you come back, there'll be a vacancy here for you.
I'll keep you to that.
Okay, our next fabulous student is Akira Huriwai. Akira, so the floor's yours.
Kia ora, a ngā mihi mahana kia tātou katoa. Ko wai o, I te taho tuku papa, ko mangatosu te maunga, ko waikato te awa, ko tānui te waka, ko tānui te iwi, ko Ngāti Kuriki kahukura te hapu, ko mangatosu te marae, ko huriwai te whānau. I te taho tuku mama, ko scallion te maunga, ko te awa, ko Aberthaldi te turanga waiwai, ko Campbell te iwi, ko McTavish te hapu, ko McTavish te whānau. Ko Akira McTavish Huriwai aho. Tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Akira, and first and foremost, I would like to begin my presentation by expressing my utmost gratitude to the councillors and staff here at the Regional Council for selecting me to be one of 8 recipients of this amazing scholarship. It is such an immense privilege to be awarded this and to be able to speak to you all today. And I know that this will significantly benefit my studies, and for that I'm incredibly grateful. So once again, thank you so much. When it came to brainstorming what I wanted to say today, I couldn't help but feel like this was a full circle moment, as the last time I stood before you all was a year and a half ago when I was a part of the Toi Moana Summer Experience Program, interning with the Te Amorangi team and being a secretariat to the regional leadership group under the guidance of the amazing Rawiri Bana and Nathan Kappa. I feel like so much has happened during the last time between my last presentation and now. I've graduated from Victoria University of Wellington with a Bachelor of Science majoring in Geography and Environmental Studies, and I've started full-time work at WSP as a graduate GIS analyst, which I'm really enjoying. The 2 summers spent at the Regional Council have greatly influenced and shaped my career and personal aspirations, as well as being instrumental and integral to motivating which path I wanted my further postgraduate studies to follow. Subsequently, I am currently working towards a Masters of Indigenous Studies at Victoria University of Wellington with a focus on reducing the inequalities that Māori face in resource management spaces. I've just completed my first trimester looking at Indigenous theories and Māori methodologies, and I'm set to start my dissertation next trimester. Alongside this, I'm doing papers on pest management, biosecurity and law, and Māori resource management. Now, it's definitely been a challenge navigating full-time work and studies, but the kaupapa of my dissertation and why I'm doing this continues to motivate me to try my best at both. The overall focus of my dissertation is on how co-governance has produced positive outcomes for the environment, and I've decided to specifically focus on Te Maru o Kaituna River Authority, which is another reason why it's such a privilege to be speaking here today in front of people on the board and those who have helped contribute to its amazing achievements. For centuries, Māori have faced neglect, exclusion, and marginalisation in the planning, policy, and decision-making processes related to the environment, including our rivers. Collaborative frameworks offer a chance for Māori to be empowered in the management of our resources, instilling hope that we can contribute to the restoration and sustainability of our rivers for future generations. By focusing on how co-governance has produced positive outcomes for the environment using Te Maru o Kaituna as a case example, I'm hoping to generate positive outcomes for Māori through further showcasing the value and importance of having Māori involved in the management of our environment, as we rightly should be, and thus seeking to lessen the discourse surrounding co-governance and its perceived value. I'm yet to start my research officially, but have been slowly building up my foundation of knowledge over the past few months, and I look forward to narrowing the scope even more. The scholarship will go towards course-related costs and essentially allowing me to complete this research to the best of my abilities. I would like to finish my time with once again thanking the councillors and staff here at the Bay of Plenty Regional Council for your generosity and support, and I look forward to sharing my findings with those interested, as well as further researching the important work that has been accomplished by Te Maru o Kaituna and the efforts of this council. Ngā mihi nui, nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Kia ora, Akira, and don't you just love that youthful positivity? It's wonderful. Thank you so much, and we're proud of you. We're just going to move on now to Saban Nuri. Kei a koe, Saban.
Tēnā rā tātou, ko Siobhan Nuri ahau, he urio no Ngāti Ranginui, tūhaurangi Ngāti Pikiao, Ngāti Tarawhai me whakatohia hoki. Kia ora, I'm Siobhan. I'm a PhD student at the University of Waikato. I recognise a lot of the faces sitting around today from when I was last in one of these meetings 2 years ago as a master's student, but I've upgraded now to a PhD. And I also have a presentation. I'll just see if it's going to share with you guys. So my PhD is looking at the insights into the early life history of our longfin and shortfin eels. So the early life history stages, they really occur out at sea, so we don't understand them very much. The first part of my PhD is trying to understand what environmental cues the glass eels are using to come back up our rivers and streams in New Zealand. So on the left in the circle is a photo of what the glass eels look like. In the middle, I've just finished some modelling. So the mean daily river flows, the moon phases, the mean river temperature from 10 days prior, and the log of the mean daily wind speed are what seem to explain the most numbers of glass eels. And then on the right-hand side is just a picture of some of the other fish species that I've been catching during my studies. The second chapter is looking at using the air bones from inside of the eels. So it's called an otolith, and like a tree trunk, it also has rings. And inside the rings of these otoliths, every ring is 1 day. So if I polish down the otolith and reveal the rings, if I count them all, it will be able to tell me how old each of the glass eels are when they reach New Zealand. And then if I look at the date when I caught them and count back the number of days of how old it is, I can determine when it was born out at sea. And then I'm also measuring the distance between the rings to try and help us get an understanding on how they grow out at sea. The third part of my studies is trying to determine their spawning locations and then how they get back to New Zealand. So at the moment, we don't know where our longfins or shortfin eels spawn. The purple circles on the map are showing where we think the shortfins spawn, and the green are showing where we think the longfins spawn. So post PhD, I am hoping to keep studying the early life stages of many more of our migratory fish in New Zealand, because we have a poor understanding of their marine stages as well. But I also hope to be an inspiration for rangatahi to help look after our tile. And I hope to be able to provide opportunities to rangatahi so that they can get real world applications of science. And I just want to also thank everyone from Ngāti Awa who have come to help me with all of my fieldwork. This project is a very big project and I definitely wouldn't have been able to do it alone. I'd also really like to thank Bay of Plenty Regional Council for awarding me this scholarship so that I can keep doing my studies. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Siobhan, and sorry for pronouncing your name wrong.
That's okay.
That was a wonderful presentation, and you have been hardjeka. So she's done lots of field work on the Rangitaiki River in all weathers, in all seasons, and many of the locals turned up to support her, including members on our Rangitaiki River Forum. So thank you very much for your presentation. Kia ora.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so our next ones are recordings from 4 students. Our first one is Daniel. Recording from Daniel. There's a bit of commentary in the appendix of your agenda if you want to read about our students. Kia ora.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko tia mana te whakapaparanga mai. Engari ko mauao te maunga e ru nei taku ngāko. Ko te moana toi te moana e mahia nei aku mā harahara. E mihi ana ki ngā tohu o nehe o tauranga e noho nei au. Ko Rupa tōku whānau, ko Dan tōku ingoa. No reira, toitu te marae a tāne mahuta, toitu te marae a tangaroa, toitu te tangata. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora, my name is Dan. I'm originally from Germany, visited New Zealand for the first time in 2016. And fell in love with the place. Came here a few more times before in 2018 I got granted my residency. Then moved over here, and you basically got locked down. And in that lockdown, I decided to pursue a change of career. My original background lies in kind of business development and e-commerce. And New Zealand made me want to get more involved with the environment. So I signed up for the diploma for environmental management at Toi Ohomai. And because I'm a diver and I always loved the ocean, I chose the marine strand. Currently, I'm in my second year, just about to finish this, and I'm currently also researching shellfish and if they can be used as a mitigation tool for erosion and sedimentation issues that are caused by human developments and in the bigger scheme, the climate change and the challenges that are upcoming. And that's also my aspiration, or my long-term goals, is to become a kaitiaki who tries to tackle the challenges that we as a society, community, and also nature are currently facing and most likely will be facing over the next few years. So thank you very much for the scholarship. It will help immensely with not only the student fees, but because I am diving and diving equipment as well as certifications are not cheap. So yeah, it will help with that. I really appreciate the scholarship from you. Yeah, that's me. Thank you very much. Kia ora.
Tēnā koutou katoa.
ora, just for the benefit of our councillors, in his little mihi to us, he was just describing his fund affiliation with the Moao Rohe. Although he is not from here, it is effectively his home. Kia ora. And we'll now listen to Stevie Wikirifi.
Katoa, me mihi kātika kia koutou I tāko hamai tēnei karahipi he tokatu moana ki au, he taonga tino whakahirahira tēnei mō tōku huarahi PhD. Nō reira he honore nui ki au me tōku whānau, e mihi ana, e mihi ana, e mihi ana. Ko ai ahau, ko ai tēnei, ko Stevie huri ana wakariwhi tōku ingoa. Ki te taho tōku pāpā, ko tūhaurangi, ko Ngāti tūwharetoa ona iwi, ko hononga kia Ngāti Pikiao, kia Ngāti Ruanui I Taranaki. Ki te taho tōku māma, ko Ngāti Wāhiao, Ngāti Whakaue, Ngāti Tarawhai, me Ngāti Parau, ona ake iwi. Engari, no whakarewa ahau, I tipu ake au ki reira. Engari, nāia nei, e noho ana maua ko takitama I konei I ōwhata. So kia ora everybody. It's a huge honour and a privilege to be a recipient of the He Tokatu Moana scholarships. Gosh, I didn't think I would be successful, but I am, and I'm truly grateful. To the other recipients, I wish you all the best on this journey as you embark on new learnings, new experiences. So kia ora. Mō taku here, my apologies, I cannot be there today. I have some prior engagements. So I hope that this video will give you a better understanding of who I am and the current PhD journey I'm on. I've been given some questions to answer. So the first one I've been given is please provide an overview of your study. So I work currently in the health and wai restoration space, and one of the projects that we're working on is the Rotokawa bath. So we've established a close relationship with mana whenua and the trustees, and I believe this is where this passion really revealed itself. I've built a close relationship with a microbiologist, Karen Helton from Genus Science, and together we are looking to discover what the effects of bath soaps that are used in our waiariki or in our puna that flow out into a stream and into our lakes, and what is the effect that that has on our taiao. So to broaden my research a bit more, I've had to look at that aspect, and also looking at our tikanga and kawa procedures and protocols. And then the last one is about our mindsets, our mental modes, and the way that we treat our puna. Furthermore, I'd like to look at comparing and contrasting between Beppu in Japan, or the onsen baths, and then up in Greenland. And really it's to help measure and assist in what we're, how we're treating our baths. The second question is share your future aspirations. So I believe I'm currently doing them. I've moved back home 3 years ago to have my son. Currently doing a PhD and also working with and for my iwi. But in terms of future aspirations, so like 10 years time would be for my son. So I'd like him to be fluent in his te reo Māori, be a raukura of te aho matua, because I feel that people who grew up in te ao Māori, te reo Māori, have a better understanding of our taiao, a better connection. So, yeah. And the last question is discuss how the scholarship has supported you in your studies. So I am required to attend AUT University, so I intend to use this money towards petrol, transport, food and accommodation. I have my first wānanga in July, on July the 5th, and yes, that money would go towards that, but also to my fees, because I do not want another loan. It took me, oh gosh, almost 20 years to pay my last one. So that's me, whānau, and thank you very much. Again, it's an honour and a privilege to receive this scholarship, and I hope that the research that I do uncover and find will help with our taiao, our environment for our tamariki mukopuna. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Kia ora koutou mā. Just for the benefit of our councillors, the previous speaker introduced herself, articulating her rich cultural whakapapa to Te Arawa waka iwi and hapu. Kia ora. Ko Ohine Muri me Waihunga Awa, ko Tikapa te Moana, ko Tainui te Waka, ko Tamatera te Iwi, ko Kiriwira te Hapu, ko Te Paoharaki te Marae, ko Jessica Takawingoa. Thank you for having me here today. I'd just like to firstly express my gratitude for the scholarship that I received. I really appreciate it. Currently, I'm living in Whakatane and I am studying to obtain my Bachelor of Environmental Studies at Te Whare Wānanga o Awanuiarangi. This program is a blend of Māori and Western knowledge and exploring how mātauranga Māori and Western science can work together to create a healthy environment. I'm in my second year, and so I know I'm very lucky to be able to study full-time, and I'm just trying to learn as much as I can about the environment and figure out where I want to go in the whole space. I have a passion and an interest in seabirds and how they can indicate the impact of climate change. And that's where I'd like to see me going, but I'm just happy to do anything at the moment. I just want to learn as much as I can. So the scholarship has really come at a great time. It's supporting me by affording me some extra time that I don't have to work so much. I work part-time on a dairy farm every second weekend, and it's just taken a bit of pressure off how I don't have to, I can put more effort into trying to get some practical experience in water testing rather than going looking for paid work. So that's how it's supported me, and I'm just really grateful for the opportunity, and yeah, that's me.
Huri tonu ake au ko uwhiara I ko te pai e nā tatipuna whare ko nā tikuri re tika tonu au ki porere opu hau te aua haurere ana hau ko te huo pātātua ko teure wera I te whai a te motu ko te kōtiriki rani te matua tanata I whai a I te motu I te whakamate au e tau kuri e ta tuatai tēnei aku mihi ki tō tātou kai hana kui o te timatana me te whakamutu nā mea katoa wa tihei Māori o re kia ia. E te tuarua tēnei aku mihi kia koutou. Kia koutou nā ranatira, nā kai whakahere nā mānai o te kaunihera o te moana nui a toi. Nei rā taku mihi kia koutou mō koutou awhi, o koutou tautoko mō tōku haerenga I roto I te ao ture, o tira I roto I te ao Māori. Nō reira, tēnei, nā mihi mahana, nā mihi mai o kia koutou. Te tuatoru, tēnei aku mihi ki nā
ki nā kai kōrero o te wā, ki o kuhoa, ki nā tauira e karanahia kia koutou, e kōrero, e whare ki hea nā kōrero i tēnei rā neira te mihi kia koutou. Ko wai au, ko wai te tanata e karanara nā tū kia koutou, ko Liam te mara tōku ingoa, ki te taha o tōku kuia, uri tēnei no Waikato Tainui, no Ngāti Mahuta, no Ngāti Pikiao, no Ngāti Manawa, o tira no Ngāti Awa no hoki. Ki te taha o tōku kraua, he uri tēnei no Ngāti Kuri, me nai te paina, me nā hapu katoa o rua tāhuna, o tira he tama hau o te kohu, he uri a hau o tūhoi pōtiki, e mihi ana kia koutou. Tēnā koutou. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge all of the representatives of the Bay of Plenty Regional Council for your awhi and your support through my journey, through Te Ao Ture, the world of the law, o tira ki Te Ao Māori, the Māori worldview as well. To provide a little bit of context around my research project, my core research project for this semester was entitled Whenua Māori, the Key to Intergenerational Healing and Wellbeing of Ngāiwi Māori, with a particular focus on Ngāi Tūhoe. And the body of research is guided by the whakatauki ko te toto o te tanata he kai, ko te orana o te tanata he whenua. Ko te whakapākehata no tērā whakatauki, the blood of the people is food, but the health of the people is the land. And that is the whakatauki that has underpinned my research. My research looks to perpetuate the importance of protecting and upholding the mana and tapu of our whenua tūpuna. And it also looks to analyse from a legal perspective the ways in which we can better care for and utilise our whenua to restore and uphold the mana of our people. In particular, my research has looked at a number of treaty settlements, local legislation, and RMA reforms. And I wanted to once again thank the Regional Council with the support of your amazing kaimahi for supporting my journey I roto I Te Ao Ture. My future aspirations are really simple. I want to be of great service to my whānau, to my hapu and to my iwi, and utilise my skills, whatever those may be, for the benefit of my people and my whānau moving into the future. Ko koera taku moi moi a. Really simple dreams and aspirations, but every single dissertation I've written, every single research project I've conducted, and every mahi I've entered into has been to achieve this goal. So koera taku moi moi a mua popo. And to further discuss how He Toka Tū Moana has supported my research, as you know, as you will all know, research is very expensive, so I wanted to mihi to you all for supporting, for financially supporting me in this kaupapa, but it has also been an indication that this kaupapa, and has been a reassurance for me that this kaupapa is something that is needed within our community. So I wanted to mihi to you all for your support and for your awhi. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, uri anō ki te whane.
Kanete mihi kia koutou. For those of the students that are still on Zoom, I'm going to open the floor to the members for questions. Councillor McMillan.
Oh, kia ora. I don't have any questions, but just a comment that amazing brain power that we've heard this morning, and enthusiasm, and really there's just one sentence I have to say, and that is that it gives me hope for our future. So ngā mihi nui kia koutou.
There don't appear to be any questions from Zoom, so just a few words from me then, from the Chair. Ngā mihi kia koutou, thank you for your great presentations this morning. I guess I can refer back to some comments that were made this morning by Chairman Leader around the need for governance in Māori land trusts, and I guess the response that came was around the next generation, and that is you. So, you know, we pin high hopes on you to come and boost those areas where we're leading strength in Te Ao Māori. And listening to you this morning, that's the optimism that you give me that it's coming. I guess for people like me who are still sitting around this table, it's my job to hold the line until you come and replace me at this table. But, you know, the door is always open. Go and finish the research, go and do the study, because there is a lot of work to be done on the home front. So, you know, to all of you, great congratulations on what you're achieving. There is a lot of mahi to do for you when you come home. Don't rush, because it's not going to run away. You know, build your strengths, but, you know, the mahi is waiting back here. So, ngā mihi kia koutou. Yeah. We do have one more student. Sam, can you come to the table? We are going to invite you up to the table. We are going to allow Sam to give us some kōrero on his journey as well. Kia koe, Sam. Aroha mai, Sam. Can you turn your microphone on, please?
There we go. Sorry. Do you want me to start again? Could everyone hear? Okay, sweet. We'll continue. Firstly, I suppose I'd just like to acknowledge the He Toka Tū Moana recipients. What an inspiring bunch of students that is. I particularly wanted to draw on Jessica's story, being a single mother and going back to do university study in something that will contribute hugely to her whānau and her community is really, really meaningful. And also Dan's story. I think it proves that Te Ao Māori is not just for Māori and not just for New Zealand, but it carries a message and a meaning that resonates far beyond our rohe and far beyond our shores. Programs to encourage understanding of how Indigenous cultures, local government and management of cultural practices intersect are vital and are respected worldwide. As was mentioned, I'm studying at Harvard University, and we've had two different Māori academics there in the last year at the law school and at the urban planning school, talking about particularly the research that Te Maiora is doing into legal and natural personhood, and what happens when we give personhood to entities like Te Rawera or like the Whanganui River. And so very much the research that you are enabling and the leadership that you are enabling as a council is making a difference not only here in the Bay of Plenty, but around the world. People in other countries are watching what Aotearoa is doing in Indigenous leadership very, very closely, which means that, ultimately, this is making a difference everywhere and for Indigenous people everywhere, many of whom are in a much more difficult spot than Māori are in Aotearoa. I mean, you look at the plight of some Indigenous peoples in other countries around the world, and if Māori can be leaders in this space, and if this council is enabling that leadership, then it extends far beyond what we can see at any given time. As I said, my name is Samuel Taylor. I whakapapa to Ngāti Maru, Waikato Tainui and Ngāti Paua, but don't hold that against me. I grew up here and I've been here most of my life, so I know what hand I'm being fed from. No, but I did go to Mount Maunganui College. In fact, I think Councillor Crosby might have given the address at our graduation. I distinctly remember comments about Bluetooth and titanium quantities in water, but not a lot else. But no, it was a wonderful, wonderful school, and I'm very, very grateful to have grown up in such a wonderful place. During my time in high school, I was far more involved than any healthy and sensible young person has to be in local government. but somehow I found it enjoyable. And I kind of got involved, ran around a little bit, initially through the InStep Young Leaders program, and then of my own accord submitting to local plans and things. I think it's really, really important that young people are involved and are a voice at the table, particularly in terms of long-term plan submissions. You know, we heard from the InStep Young Leaders on Thursday morning last week, a bunch of bright, talented young people who took the initiative on a strike day to get dressed up in their little school uniforms and rock up to the city council at a time most of us probably wouldn't want to be crawling out of bed if we were still in high school. But they came and they listened and they learnt and they spoke because they have an investment in the future of their city. But what I think was remarkable is that among that group, not a single person raised their hand and said they thought they would be living in Tauranga in 10 years' time. Not one of them. And that is a scary thing, because that is a room of 40 of our best and our brightest, the people who in every sense are the future of Tauranga, will lead industry, will lead research, and will lead in public service, but none of them want to stay here. And so there's a real question to answer there in terms of why don't they want to stick around, and why don't they see longevity in Tauranga? And part of that, I think, is because when a lot of plans are created, mainly at city council level, but also here at regional council, they aren't necessarily always created with the voices of young people baked into those decisions. Some fault for that lies with the fact that young people don't always show up and speak up and don't come and submit. But at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to lead the horse to water and drag it along kicking and screaming if you have to, because the voice is important even if they don't know that it matters themselves. But I suppose this isn't all about young people. I'd love the opportunity to talk a little bit about myself, because through that participation in local government and central government, all of those things during my time in high school, I was privileged enough to be able to head off to the United States to undertake a double degree at Harvard University in government with honors and economics. At the moment, I'm actually working on my honors thesis with my advisor, who is the chair of the government, which is our term for political science department, Dr. Daniel Carpenter. And we are currently working on studying a comparative study on the form of Te Tiriti o Waitangi to the treaties between the Crown and Indigenous tribes in Canada, and the impact that the two different forms and what those different shapes look like have had on Indigenous well-being and native survivance through to the 21st century. It's exciting to me that I've been able to push that I've been able to take my learnings from here and seeing the involvement of Te Tiriti in all levels of government and the incorporation of Māori values and tangata whenua voices, and compare and contrast that to what Indigenous groups are looking like around the world. What's also exciting, though, is that Harvard has really grabbed this with both hands and said, this is something we're interested in. So not only are they very grateful to fund this research project, to support it institutionally, they're also looking at introducing a Te Reo Māori class. So that, I think, is further evidence to support the idea that actually Te Ao Māori matters beyond just Māori, beyond just New Zealand, but around the world. As far as what I'm doing here, I've taken my little lanyard off, but I'm actually working at the regional council this summer. It's summer for me. It's not feeling very summery out there, but this is my summer. And I'm working as the summer intern in the Kaupapa Māori work stream and with the Essential Freshwater Program, looking at how we make sure that Maanga Kai, in terms of the National Policy Statement on Freshwater Management, is being incorporated into freshwater plans for the council. So that work has been hugely rewarding so far. It's exciting to really see this thing that I'm studying academically at the moment in practice, and actually look at how Te Tiriti and mana whenua, tangata whenua values are being incorporated into the work that government is doing every day. So for me, that's really been exciting. I didn't get as many questions as the other people did, so I suppose I'll just stop there and ask if you have any questions for me. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Sam. I just want to say, after the MFE presentation, I think a lot of us around the table were feeling rather overwhelmed of what's happening down in central government and what's going to be coming further at us. And I think what the rangatahi presentations have given us this morning, and listening to you as well, gives us that ray of hope, I guess, that, you know, let's not stress on the space. There's greater things coming. We've got great rangatahi coming through, and we're going to be fine. So thank you for that. And I'm going to open up to the rest of the councillors. Councillor Nees.
Kia ora, Sam. That was great to hear from you. I take on board what you say about needing to reflect youth voices in our policies and plans. And to be honest, a lot of young people aren't that interested in local government. You'd accept that. Yes. Could you give us your thoughts on what you think we should be doing to engage with the maximum number of young people?
That is the age-old conundrum, isn't it? That local government isn't really sexy. It doesn't grab the interests of young people. And I'd advise you to start up a TikTok account and maybe see if you can get on the viral trends, councillor. No, I don't know what the solution is, honestly. And my experience has always been that if we as young people came to council and submitted, we were always viewed with a great deal of respect and incorporation. And I think once that gap is bridged, there is a really solid relationship there, and I've always found that's the case. The difficulty, I guess, is how do you bridge that gap? I don't know whether it's a case of actually going to schools as a council and saying, we're here, we're councillors, we actually want to take an hour out of your week and just listen to you. And set up panels like you do here. I know it's often there are hearings on marae or in different places, and I wonder if doing the same thing with respect to young people and actually going into the schools saying, sit down, let's have a conversation during your class time and talk about the future is the way forward. Yeah.
Chair, could I just, thanks Sam, could I just tauko Councillor McDonald's comments? Yeah, it's not a flippant comment, but I don't think you should lament the opportunity that young people have in moving away from Tauranga. Look at it as this bit of analogy. Look at those young people like the great wandering albatross. They leave the lands, they fly the oceans looking for opportunity. The critical thing is, and I know it's a big expectation, Māori, they come back home to breed. Kia ora.
Yes,
I'll bring the remnants back of the breeding.
I don't disagree, and I think it is important that people wander. And I'm hardly one to talk because I got out of here as quickly as I possibly could. But I think you have to strike a balance between those people who want to leave and between saying this should be a city where, you know, where the people who are 21, 22, 23, kind of in the very grips of what must feel to us like the very peak of our life, that we feel, what's the word? I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. That, you know, that Tauranga kind of grips us because obviously some people are always going to leave, and that's the case whether you grow up in Auckland or Wellington or New York City. You know, some people are always going to want to get out of there. But I think if every single person in that room of leaders says, I don't want to be living in this city 10 years from now, I think that's more than letting the albatross wander and come back to breed. I think that's more that, I think there's a bigger issue there.
Kia ora, Sam. I just want to let others know that Sam was really inspiring the other day at the Instep breakfast hui. And what I love about you, Sam, is you're so real, you know, and you just say it how it is, and you're not afraid to dress things up and skirt around the bushes, you know, you just slam dunk and in there. And I think that reality check and us being real as local government, and that means accessible, like people can relate to us, is key. And you seem to be like a bridge between, but, you know, I think what I take from that is that desire to always be real, say it how it is, you know, not baffle with jargon, complexity and all of that, because all of those things can be so off-putting. And we've got complex issues, but you got a really great gift of simplifying complex issues, and I want to commend you on that. So great to meet you, Sam.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think that is an important point, is that it's easy to get lost in bylaws and agendas and meetings, but that is a barrier between young people and government.
Hi, Sam. Using your skills of simplifying some complex issues, and while you're here, what's your view on lowering the voting age in local government to 16?
That's a good question. I'm generally against it, and that might come across as a surprise, I think. But I think there's a totally an ideological argument to be made that you should let as many people vote as possible. But I think if we're not focusing on getting the people who are already eligible to vote now to vote, I think saying, well, let's add another 2 years on is a distraction from the broader point, which is right now in Tauranga City in 2016, less than 1% of eligible voters under 25 voted. And I think there's, you know, we can have a discussion about lowering the voting age, and I'm not like hugely against it. I wouldn't be marching in the streets or anything. But I think if we use that as a distraction from actually talking about the fact that 99% of people under 25 can't be bothered voting in local government, I think that's the focus, because that's the voices that are not being heard in the system at the moment.
Yeah, I just want to get your, if you like, the process right. In the Māori tikanga, you start off when a child is born. They discover the world. So you see little kids at preschool, they're finger pointing. What they're doing is they're wondering who they are. Ko wai koe, ngā wai koe, no hea koe. Who are you? Who do you belong to? Where's your mountain? They learn all that. Then they get to a stage where they become youth. And from the youth, they pick up the wero. They make the challenges of life. And that means that they're taking over the steering wheel. And then you get to a certain age where you get gold cards and grey hair, top of the mountain. And you're presented with a rear vision mirror to look backwards. So your knowledge, when you get to a certain age, is to look backwards. Little children are the finger point and discover the world. To carry the can or now driving the seat are the young people, the youth. So there's a provision for that. It's not to jump into there and still don't know what you've learned at kohanga reo. So it's knowing that knowledge is when to take over the steering wheel. Just put it that simple.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more.
Sam, a great speech and wonderful to listen to you, but I just have one thing I can just say that everything I agree with almost everything you're saying there, especially the voting age one. And one thing I will disagree with the chair is I don't like seeing all our young people leaving our whenua, and he knows that. I've got a strong relationship with youth in Kawerau, for instance, and I was the first mayor in New Zealand that started off a youth council. And I'll tell you now, it was an uphill battle with a lot of old people around the table. What a waste of time, waste of money. Young people don't pay rates and all the rest of it. But all I can say right here and now, the amount of money that I see here that we've invested in these young people is minuscule compared to what we're going to get back from all of them. They are just an inspiring crowd of young people, and great to have you on board here, Sam. And yeah, you don't want to stay over in America too much. But
can't wait to get home.
Yeah, but great. And yeah, I think we need to look very, very seriously about the investment that we do put into our young people. A youth council is great. Rotorua Lakes is Rotorua. I see all those young people we met over there on our tour. Just stunning young people that we really need to embrace and give them all the support. And like a korohi, you know, we might be grey and we might be old, but we've been through the ups and the downs, and we've got a lot of wise things that we can hand on to young people. So great to meet you.
Thank
Cheers.
you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. No more questions from the... I don't think we have any questions. Well, once again, I want to thank you. I just want to go back on some of the things that have been mentioned. That is sad to hear what you're saying, where young people opted not to return to Tauranga Moana. I am born and bred Tauranga Moana, but I think I understand the sentiment of those young people that may be expressing that view. I know with our own whānau hapu iwi that a lot of our young people have crossed the ditch and doing a lot better than some of those that have, if they're not in study, have struggled, you know, just in everyday life finding jobs, and the ease that they've found in finding that across the ditch. So I agree with you, it is a problem. It is a problem that we need to be addressing. I think what I think ourselves as council, as we lead into LTP, we need to look at how we can improve our relationship with rangatahi within the region, take on board what Councillor, gosh, you're gonna kick me for this. Councillor Campbell has raised around even our looking at what we're subscribing to the Hitaka Toi Moana scholarship, and maybe that's time again to review in the long-term plan around raising what we currently given that scholarship, because we obviously are going to have huge benefits from those young people that we are looking at to support. So I guess I just want to say, and directing that to my GM sitting at the side of me to make that things to raise in our long-term plan. So I want to thank you again for your presentation this morning, and let's invite you back a lot later when you've finished those studies. I'm very interested to learn the outcome of the Indigenous study, the global Indigenous study that you are looking at, and the comparisons with Māori, with other Indigenous groups across the world. I think that would be so beneficial as how we ourselves look at our own engagement with Māori, how we are looking to improve we engage with Māori, and I guess not being too hard on ourselves in that we often slay ourselves for non-achievement. So really looking forward. So I guess I'm going to openly invite you back now to you know, keep us updated on that research we're saying. Nō reira ngā kānuta mihi kia koe. Thank you. Ticking for us as well. I'm going to take us straight to our chair's report. I'm going to take the report as read. I will pass to Katarana if she has got any highlights in that you'll want to raise before I ask for a mover and seconder.
Madam Chair, just taking it as read unless you have some questions of the report, just noting that Toi Kairawa and He Toko Tūmoana is included in the Chair's update report. Kia ora.
Do I have any questions from any of the members? I don't appear to. Okay, can I have a mover and seconder for that report? Thank you, Councillor Nees, Councillor McMillan. All those in favour say aye. Aye, thank you, carried. Now to our last item on the agenda, which is the rate remission policy on Māori land. And I'll invite Charlie to the table. Kei a koe, Charlie.
Kia ora, everybody. Today we're just looking at just giving a brief update on the engagement that we'll be doing for the remission policy coming up. So recently we've been through the councillors for further direction on how and where we should be going with our remission policy. The next stage of the policy process is now engagement. So we've spun the engagement around, and instead of writing the policy first and then asking what people think of it, we're actually going out first for engagement. So part of this engagement that we'll be doing will be two stages. One stage will be going through online, making it available for everybody online. And then the next stage will also be 3 set huis across the major centres, being Rotorua, Whakatane and Tauranga. From there, we're inviting local owners, occupiers, trusts, the people boots on the ground that actually deal with Māori land on a day-to-day basis, and we're seeking information from them on how we can build our remission policy. So we've got the guidelines from all the local councils' policies, and we've got what was it called? Our policy that we have at the moment is based off the current TLA's policies. So we don't actually physically have a full policy ourselves. So this is the first time we'll be writing this, and that's why we're seeking engagement from the people themselves before we start writing that. We do have guidelines, but finding out the barriers and any other problems that they do face first, so that we can actually write the policy to actually work for the people before we present that back to council as well. So that's basically where we're at the moment. We've got a plan set up for the engagement process, which is what I've just outlined at the moment, making sure that we'll have as much online as possible and giving as much opportunity for feedback on that information, and making sure that we can actually write the best policy going forward. So today, all we're asking from the Komiti Māori is any further direction or any opportunities for engagement that you might have that we can include with our engagement process. And then also, I'd like to invite Komiti Māori or any of the councillors to come along to these hui and be part of that process as well. The whole point of this engagement process is not to talk or to tell everybody what we're going to do. It's more about the listening and taking in all of their feedback, experiences and knowledge that they have, so that we can write the best policy going forward.
Sorry. Councillor Crosby, Chairman Leader.
Look, yeah, thank you, Charlie, and I support the program. And I guess building on your earlier presentation, I've been to the policy committee, I think, somewhere, and here is, that kind of regional overview that came from Toikarawa. And one thing that stuck out, while 39% of land here in the Bay of Plenty is owned by Māori, 86% is in class 6 to 8. And I think that's, quite a telling statistic, which is very relative, to the conversation I think we're about to have in this space.
Thanks, Chair. The only comment I've got, and it follows on from what Councillor Crosby just said, most of that land is in the east. And I see you don't have a hui down at Te Kaha. So could I suggest that you either get hold of Rikarangi or Willie and see if it's worthwhile to go down there, because that's where most of that unrateable, unusable Māori land is.
I'll just respond to that.
And it's a long way. From Waihau Bay, it's over 2 hours. Te Kaha, it's still an hour and a half to Whakatane.
Through the chair, I acknowledge that. So as part of the process that I am doing in getting this engagement out there, is I've already got a network of people in that area. I'm actually from that area myself. I'm up from Te Aroha and just before Omaio, Whitianga Bay. So I'm very aware of the land that is out there and the people that are out there. So part of the engagement is emailing and contacting the owner occupiers in the region, giving them an online presence, but also making myself available for other meetings at any time that I can set up at the local maraes or any of the council facilities that we can actually have. And as I say, it's also online, but I am aware that there's not a lot of online presence in that region also. So we have tried to make sure that we've got a wide scope across the entire region to make sure we can get as many as possible to be engaged.
Land valuation. How do you equate land valuation compared to general land valuation? Because this is highly important in terms of if first right of refusal of land comes up, the ones who make out of it are the banks through high mortgages.
So with land valuation, the Valuer General actually puts a reduction on Māori land to acknowledge that there is not the normal transactive use of Māori land. In fact, it's limited in terms of being able to receive a mortgage or being able to be sold. So there is a reduction, and so it's based on obviously the current productive use or non-use of that land, and then the number of owners as well is taken into account. So there is some reductions that have taken place. So there is that acknowledgement with Māori land being different to general title.
Do we know what parts of our region we have the most rate arrears on Māori land? Can you?
Through the chair, not at this point. We certainly can do that diagnostics. We've been looking at the overall region while we've been doing our rate arrears collections, but we can certainly drill into that information.
Yeah, it'll be just interesting to know the information that comes out of the TLAs, making the comparison where we've got that highest brackets of rate arrears and even rate remission that's occurring in each of those TLAs to compare across the region. I don't think we have any. I think the report's a good one, but you know it's work in progress. We're yet to see whether or not your engagement process is going to work or not. You know, the best of luck. We try everything, and it is a big kaupapa. Again, taking on board what was discussed in Toi Kairoa, maybe, you know, just a brief discussion with Te Horepo of what we're doing in that space, get some views and opinions of his working in those Māori land collectives that I'm sure are ongoing discussions around the challenges around the development of Māori land rates included. So it'd be quite good to keep our hands joined with them as well as what they're doing in their space. Other than that, thank you very much. So thank you very much. Just from council, I need a mover and seconder for the report and the recommendations. Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Seconder, Councillor McMillan. All those in favour say aye. Those against, no. Carried. Thank you. Thank you. That brings us to an end to our meeting. Thank you, councillors, for your participation in today's hui. I'm going to hand to Ruben to. Oh, just before I do, I know that there are members. Oh, I can recognise somebody in the forum. Yeah. Kia ora. Actually, I'm referring to you, honey. Now, I know you've sat right through our meeting and you're in the audience. So, you know, just before we hand to have our meeting close, I'm just giving you the opportunity, if you want to, only if you want to, if you have comment. Oh. Yeah. Mamihi.
But thank you anyway. So I also think it's great that one of the recipients had our hoodie on. And because of this about 3 or 4 years ago, they and we really well.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
University, jobs, careers, and some schools. So we run a youth program that focuses on whakapapa, kōrero tuku iho and mahi tipuna. So practical application of actual work that our tipuna did and learning their skills and then supporting them to be their natural selves as their natural leaders, trying to support our haputanga and trying to make sure that our marae and our hapu and our wāhi tapu and all of our places and our stories and our people are protected. Yeah, so thank you. Well, I've got a letter of support from your committee, and so listening to all the kōrero today, I'm going to come back and I'm going to apply for that fund, and hopefully we can get more progress because it's really sad what's happening with all of our people at the moment, with the youth, not just Māori, across the nation. And so personally, there's a lot of work that needs to be done for tangata whenua because all of these, all of the opportunities that have really gone across the nation for all have been on the backs of my ancestors. And so I'm hoping that we can get our tamariki mokopuna to up level and understand what's happened, especially with he makaputanga, te tiriti o Waitangi, and what we are. Tēnā tātou.
Thank you, Helena. Thank you very much. Yeah, koe Reuben.
Thank you, Ruben. Thank you, councillors on Zoom.